What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with second part of What if Naruto was neglected by his family and became the world's greatest swordsman? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Outside Konoha, Naruto and the others were walking towards the village after having tree jumped and ran most of the way with Naruto and some clones carrying Tsunami, Tazuna, and the other tagalongs while Geralt and Tosen kept up with the group in their own way. Naruto had taken the time to talk to the women he rescued and learned each of them were fighters before they were captured, which naturally had Naruto's interest since not only did he like strong women but they could aid his clan too in the long run. There was even the bonus of Catalya being an expert blacksmith, which was a boost to Naruto and his plans if she decided to stay with him and his clan. It may sound wrong that Naruto was planning and looking at the benefits of sheltering the women, but he had to for his clan's sake and future. As clan head, it was his duty to ensure the survival and advancement of his clan, so if there were people he could recruit to help rebuild the clan then he was going to do it and make sure he knew what benefits were coming with said recruits. His primary goals were to rebuild the Uzumaki clan, love his women, and continue to honor Shinigami as his clan has sworn to always do. Anything else was secondary and less important. Naruto broke from his thoughts as they approached the village gate and signed in before entering. Triss, you and Hana can lead the others to the hotel we're staying at and inform the others what's going on. Naruto stated, making the two women nod before they led the other foreigners to the hotel as Kushina's group looked surprised at there being more to Naruto's group than Triss, Hana, and the girl he mentioned was his fiancée. Naruto merely ignored them and kept walking with Zabuza, the demon brothers, and Haku to the Hokage tower since they'd need to finish filling out a few documents to formally register as shinobi of Konoha. He also wanted to just get it done before the headache of the others apologizing and trying to convince him to rejoin their family occurred. It was inevitable, understandable, and predictable, but ultimately futile. However, Naruto paused at the tower as he caught sight of a woman standing with what he assumed was her genin team. The woman was breathtaking with silky brownish black hair, a slim fit body topped with DD cup S, a tight-looking bubble butt, full plump lips painted red, slender legs, and a beautiful face. Said woman was wearing a dress made of wraps with thorn designs on them and the usual ninja sandals. The thing he noticed most were her eyes, which were a deep ruby red, and he smiled as he knew who it was immediately. "Hey, beautiful, what jewelry store did you rob to get eyes like that?" Naruto called, making the others raise an eyebrow as the woman stiffened back straight. Tentatively, the woman turned to look at the smiling Naruto since only one male in all her life had ever asked her that. "En Naruto-kun?" the woman asked hesitantly and Naruto smiled. "Hey Kur-chan, you've gotten even more beautiful," Naruto stated with his smile still in place as Kurenai let tears build up in her eyes before she rushed over and hugged him. "Naruto-kun," she shouted happily as she hugged him and idly blushed, feeling his muscles and toned body against hers as he picked her up and spun her around, causing her to giggle. Kurenai smiled as she was set down. "When did you get back?" she asked excitedly and Naruto chuckled. "A little over 2 weeks ago, but the day I got here, the Hokage sent me on a mission to back these guys up against Zabuza here and his crew," Naruto stated, causing Kurenai to finally take notice of the group Naruto was with. "I see, did the others come with you?" Kurenai asked as she turned back to him. "Yeah, they and some others I recently saved in Wave are at a hotel right now. Although, while I'd love to catch up, I have a report to give and you have something going on with your team," Naruto stated, motioning to the 3 genin behind her that were all staring. "Yes, I suppose I do," Kurenai stated with a small sigh before smiling at him. "But you'll find me when we can have time to catch up?" Kurenai asked and Naruto nodded with a smile. "Of course, though I'm sure the others want that too," Naruto stated, causing her to giggle before she kissed his cheek and walked back to her team with a sway in her hips. "See you soon, Naruto-kun," Kurenai stated with a smile as she led her team away and Naruto chuckled before heading into the tower with the others following him. Arriving at the office, Naruto merely stood there with the others as Minato finished a document and set it aside before looking at them. "Report," Minato ordered and Kushina and Itomi gave their reports while Naruto merely stood there waiting and then adding in his own actions and the like along with what Tosen, Geralt, Triss, and Hana reported to him. He then presented Aoi's head and stated he'd be returning the Raijin no Ken to Tsunade as it technically belongs to her clan, which Minato accepted and gave Naruto the bounty for Aoi. Minato, through it all, sat quietly listening to it all while noticing Kushina wanted to bring up something but was keeping it in check since she clearly didn't feel it was the time to do so. When each had finished, he turned to Zabuza's group and presented some papers. Here are the forms to become official shinobi of Konoha. Of course you will have to do a skills assessment to ensure you are ranked properly and there is a small probation period, but nothing more since most information you have on Kiri would be outdated at this point. Minato stated, causing them to nod as they filled out the forms. If it's all right, Hokage-sama, I'm perfectly fine being a genin. While my skills could be at the point of chunin if pushed, I have no experience fully working in a team and thus would hinder any assignment I was placed on. Haku stated, though she also hoped it would allow her to be placed on a team with Naruto. Minato thought about a minute before nodding since it took more than just skill and strength to be a chunin. Very well, you'll be on the reserves until a team and Jonin-sensei can be made available. Minato stated, making Haku suppress a frown as she nodded. If that's all, Hokage-sama, I'll be going now. However, I would like to request a full council meeting. Naruto stated, making them turn to look at him. May I ask why? Minato asked and Naruto shrugged. It pertains to my trip and my return. Clearing the air at a council meeting will make it go faster and keep me from having to tell things multiple times. Naruto stated, making Minato frown in thought before he finally nodded. Very well. Where are you staying so I can have an Anbu fetch you once I have the meeting called? Minato asked since it would likely be his best shot to get some clear and straight answers from his eldest. Providing the information, Naruto and Zabuza's group then left with Naruto leading them to the hotel he and his group were temporarily staying at. He had to get ready and ensure some of his companions were ready too, as he'd need them to make an appearance at this meeting. The meeting that would have him taking his clan from the imposter clan head and ensure the Uzumaki were nowhere near forgotten. Few hours later, Naruto was relaxing in his room, stroking Rukia's hair as they laid in bed, still clothed, waiting for the Anbu to come and inform them of the meeting when it was called. Rukia didn't care though, she was happy simply spending time with her lord and future husband. As his chief wife and lover, Rukia was allowed to have him to herself at times, but she never abused it since she had no intention of being cruel to her future sisters. They each got a clone to cuddle with and occasionally had some intimate time with them if the mood struck, but she and Naruto always ensured each girl got personal time with the real him. It had been her idea to use the clones at times since each woman at least got cuddles and personal time of some kind with him. The two broke from their thoughts as a knock on the door came and Naruto got up and opened it before smiling at the masked purple-haired woman before him. Said woman sported at least a pair of D cups on her chest, though it was hard to tell because of her Anbu uniform and gear hiding some of her figure, a toned and fit body with a tight-looking ass, wide hips, slender yet slightly muscular legs, and what he knew to be a pretty face since he knew who this was. Hello cat, would you like to come in for a minute? Naruto asked with a smile, causing her to nod and enter before she removed her mask and hugged him tightly to her. I'm so glad you're back, the woman stated before she giggled as he picked her up and spun her around. I missed you, Yugo-chan. Naruto stated, putting his face into the crook of her neck, causing her to blush and smile. I missed you too, Yugo stated before a throat clearing caused the two to look at an amused Rukia while Yugo blushed in embarrassment. Naruto merely laughed and held Yugo in place so she wouldn't jump back. Yugo-chan, this is Rukia, Naruto stated, causing Yugo's eyes to widen as Rukia got up and made her way over, which also caused her to take in Rukia's appearance. Rukia stood at about 5 feet 7 inches with creamy skin, raven-colored hair that was done up in a bun, black eyes that if you looked closely you could see some purple come through, a slender body topped with CCD cup S, a bubble butt that almost begged to be spanked, slender legs, and an aura of nobility mixed with that of a fighter's. For clothing, she wore an elegant black kimono with silvery accents and red Uzumaki swirls across it in one large spiral on the back, and black heels. A black rosary bead necklace with tomos and Uzumaki swirls mixed in was wrapped around her right wrist. Around her neck was scarlet choker with a black Uzumaki spiral. And on her left ring finger was a simple gold band with one of each precious stone embedded in it, with a diamond being the center and largest one. None of the stones were grand or overly large, but Rukia and Naruto saw no need for it when it was only an engagement ring and the wedding ring should be the more impressive. All in all, Yugo could see how Naruto fell for the young lady before her as she was stunning. A pleasure to meet you at last, I have heard such wonderful things from Naru-kun. Rukia stated as Naruto stepped back with a smirk and Rukia began looking over Yugo intently. The pleasure is mine, Lady Rukia. Naruto-kun spoke often and highly of you in his letters. Yugo stated with a small smile since Naruto had kept in touch with everyone he was close to. She and the other women knew about Naruto and his growing harem, with his carefully explaining it so they wouldn't get the wrong idea, but hadn't seen them before. Rukia merely smiled, I know. Rukia stated as she made Yugo jump slightly when she grabbed her ass and trailed a hand over her uniform-covered S. So jumpy, I thought you Anbu were more disciplined than that. Rukia stated as she squeezed Yugo's ass a bit and began kneading it. I was merely surprised as I am not being a professional right now. Yugo stated with a small blush as Rukia kneaded her ass a bit more aggressively. But Anbu are supposed to always be prepared and ready even when off duty. Rukia stated as she pressed up against Yugo and was next to her ear, but then, you're not the first woman to forget her duties when it came to Naruto. Rukia whispered huskily into her ear causing that to blush more as Naruto merely chuckled at his fiancée. She so loved to tease any and all women that had an interest in him as she had done similar acts with his other lovers when she began to push for him to have his own harem. Both of them knew she fully enjoyed teasing them. It only increased when she decided that her being intimate with the women was a good idea both to help him and because it would entice him more. Naruto let her do so as long as it was nothing serious and she didn't make the women too uncomfortable. Essentially, Rukia had trained herself to be a bile seductress that could make women bend to her charms and skills and ensure they were obedient and submissive to her and Naruto when necessary. Hence the other girls readily and fully accepting her as the alpha female of the group and none ever even thought of usurping or trying to replace her. It also gave her a deep appreciation and list for the female body. However, right now he had to cut it short as they had a time-sensitive issue. Rukia, enough. We have a meeting to go to. Naruto stated making Rukia nod before she gave another squeeze to Yugo's ass before standing beside her future husband. Yugo-chan, please inform the Hokage that we will be along as soon as we can. Naruto stated making Yugo nod as she placed her mask back on and left via Shunshin. Rukia then hugged his arm with a smile. Time to take full ownership of your clan. Rukia stated as Naruto nodded with his face being serious. Yes, and to set up some of my other projects as well. Naruto stated causing Rukia to nod since she knew her love was here for more than just to further his reputation and shinobi career. Shall we love? Rukia asked and Naruto nodded as the two left their room and grabbed a couple of their growing group as they'd be needed for some things at the meeting. Hokage Tower. Council Room. The councils of Konoha had been gathered together at the behest of the Hokage as apparently there was a matter that required their attention, though only Minato and Kushina knew fully what it was. Among them were the clan heirs as well since Naruto had submitted the suggestion to Hiruzen that the clan heirs should be included in the council meetings to help them learn and grow to understand their future responsibilities. However, their clan heads would be the ones to decide when they were ready to come to said meetings as they wouldn't be allowed to talk to anyone about what occurred in said meetings and would not be able to speak unless directly addressed. On the back wall was Jiraiya since he was always at the meetings to provide any information his spy network had or know what to check into. It was easy to be there since he had begun to stick around Konoha more after they failed to find Naruto. He honestly didn't know what was worse. The beating from the Toads, the beating from Tsunade, or the guilt that he neglected his eldest godson and essentially got all caught up in a prophecy that could have not even come to pass and now it wouldn't since the Toad Elder said the prophecy was broken and a new one was being formed. However, the Toad Elder refused to even try and glimpse it since it was his observations and loose tongue that caused the first one to come undone and he wasn't about to push his luck with the gods by possibly interfering again. Everyone broke from their thoughts as Tsunade spoke. Hokage-sama, why are we here? She asked since they'd been there a few minutes and Minato has only stated that they were waiting on someone. Please, be patient Tsunade, he should be here shortly. Minato stated making Tsunade frown in thought. However, before anyone could comment, a knock at the door came. Enter. Minato stated before the door opened, showing Naruto, Rukia, Zabuza, and Tazuna, with Zabuza gaining the most reactions, especially with him having a Konoha headband on his head. Naruto and Rukia walked ahead while Zabuza and Tazuna stayed back. "Thank you for calling the meeting, Hokage-sama," Naruto stated, and Minato held back the saddened look that wanted to come across his face. "I believe we have a lot to talk about," Naruto continued, and Minato nodded. "Indeed we do, Naruto," Minato stated, causing everyone except his family and the Uchiha present to widen their eyes in shock. However, any happiness and surprise was quickly diminished by an idiot on the civilian side. "It's the demon. Anbu, kill it quickly," the idiot shouted before the room was covered in killing intent from the Namikaze, Uchiha, Tsunade, Hiruzen, Jiraiya, and, to the surprise of some of them, Danzo Shimura. "Watch your mouth. Not only is that my son you are threatening, but you trying to order the Anbu could be considered treason," Minato growled out, since he had Jiraiya looking into the villagers when Mikoto had hinted at them being part of the cause for Naruto leaving. He was less than amused or happy with what Jiraiya turned up, and he made his displeasure known clearly for all to witness. Hence why some new plots were added to the graveyard shortly after it was learned what the village did to contribute to Naruto leaving. As much as the sentiment is appreciated, Hokage-sama, I have no need for protection from such lower life forms, Naruto stated calmly, while the majority of the civilian council growled. "Show some respect, brat. We are members of the council," another idiot stated, and Naruto merely looked at him in boredom. "The civilian council, meaning you were elected, you didn't earn your place like the shinobi in this room did. If you want my respect, stop being cowards that hide behind the ninja of this village whenever you get scared or threatened. You being the exception, Mebuki-san," Naruto stated, making Sume Inuzuka and Hana Inuzuka struggled to contain their laughter, while Mebuki merely nodded to Naruto, knowing he wasn't aiming the insults at her since she actually knew the life ninja lived. It was part of the reason Naruto suggested to Hiruzen that if any civilians had to be removed, that they should be replaced with shinobi that were now civilians. Who better to help in civilian affairs than those who understood what it was to be a ninja protecting said civilians? The retired ninja could see things from both sides and find a way that benefited civilians without harming the ninja. Breaking those thoughts from the forefront of his mind, Naruto turned his attention back to the present. "Anyway, as for where I was in Iron Country learning from the different warriors there, and they in turn got others who visited to train me as well. I trained with swordsmen, assassins, fighters, monks, brawlers, killers, warriors, and even some ninja while doing some work for Iron Country," Naruto stated, making some widen their eyes, since it was rare for someone to enter Iron Country uninvited, let alone be allowed to stay and train. "It was during that time that I went to Uzu and found it in a rather distasteful state," Naruto stated, giving a slight glare at Kushina, who had a look of surprise on her face. "It was there that I became the Uzumaki clan head," Naruto added, making everyone look at him surprise. "Naruto, your mother is the Uzumaki clan head," Minato stated. Naruto merely glanced at him before looking at Kushina. "Is she? I find that hard to believe, as she possesses none of the clan artifacts, nor does she have the brand," Naruto stated, making Kushina widen her eyes in shock while the others looked confused. "Brand? Artifacts?" Hiruzen asked, since he genuinely didn't know what they were talking about. Naruto flexed his hand, causing Orcrist to appear. "Orcrist, the Stormcleaver," Naruto stated as he released the blade, and it fell into the ground up to the hilt, surprising the onlookers. Naruto then summoned Glamdring, the Thunderhammer. Naruto stated, dropping the blade, and it planted itself next to Orcrist before pulling a charn out. "A charn, the lightning blade," Naruto stated, dropping the blade into the ground before he held up his left hand, and the rosary appeared along with another set around his neck, the rosary beads of the high priest. Naruto stated before summoning and slamming the Shikuho staff down, the staff of the high priest. Naruto stated before holding his right hand up and showing the Uzumaki signet ring, the signet ring of the whirlpool, wearable only by the clan head. Naruto stated, staring at the Kushina the entire time as her face was showing nothing but shock. Naruto then surprised them by removing his cloak and shirt, making several women blush and drool at his physique before he pointed to the center of his chest where a red whirlpool design was before it glowed and spread across his entire body. Everyone looked on in awe of the black tribal patterns and designs that had blood-red veins throughout them that were now across Naruto. The clan head is the only one to get these markings as they were created with the help of Lord Shinigami and as such can't be removed or destroyed, merely passed on to whoever is the next clan head. Naruto stated as the markings receded back into the spiral which glowed before fading. Then you should give the seat up to Lord Hokage's wife. One of the idiot civilians shouted, making the other heads scoff since it was never that simple. Doesn't work that way, Naruto stated calmly as he put shirt and cloak back on. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, Kushina can't be clan head as she wasn't chose by the artifacts. These items were forged and created under Lord Shinigami's supervision and as such they choose who possesses them and the clan head is the one who possesses them all. The fact the signet didn't leave my hand upon showing her is proof that she's not the clan head. Naruto informed as the blades and staff all rose from the ground and came back to him before vanishing from sight. As such, I will now ask that she remove herself from the clan seat as she has no business sitting there. Naruto stated, making Kushina swallow a lump in her throat before she stood and walked to stand by her husband. What about when you're not in the village? Someone will have to attend in your place. Inoichi Yamanaka asked and Naruto motioned to Rukia. My fiancée, Rukia Kuchiki, will be regent whenever I am not here as she is a better fit than Kushina. Naruto surprising some with Rukia being his fiancée and shocking others with his statement that she was better than Kushina. And why exactly is that? Hiyashi asked, finding the meeting more interesting than he thought it would be. Because, as of this moment, Kushina Namikaze and her 2 children are exiled from the Uzumaki clan. Naruto stated, shocking all the Konoha residents. What? Kushina, her children, and Minato all shouted in disbelief. You can't do that. Another civilian shouted only for Naruto to give them a cold glare. Do not presume to tell me what I can or cannot do with my clan. Naruto stated with a warning tone to his voice. Naruto, I understand that there have been problems, but surely you don't need to do something that drastic. Minato stated and Naruto looked at him with a cold stare. It isn't about payback, it is about the fact she and her children broke several Uzumaki clan laws, some of which are punishable by execution, so I'm actually being very nice in merely exiling them. Naruto stated, shocking them all further. Naruto-san, you keep saying, Kushina and her children, does that mean you do not count yourself as son? Shibi Aburame asked and Naruto merely grunted. I haven't counted myself as her or Lord Hokage's son for over a decade. But this is more the fact I have no direct blood ties to Kushina or the Hokage anymore besides being the same clan as Kushina. Naruto stated, confusing them all. The mark of the whirlpool isn't just a pretty design or sign of authority. It makes my blood 100% pure Uzumaki blood, thus giving me ties to all Uzumaki in existence regardless of how distant the relations are. As such, any medic comparing my blood to Kushina's would find us being familial but not to the extent of mother and son. Naruto stated, surprising them again. The purpose of this is so the clan head is a full-fledged Uzumaki and thus would be connected and close to all members rather than any immediate family. Once the stain that Kushina and her children have brought on my clan is removed, my hair will turn blood red and my eyes would either turn the royal purple or fuse with my blue eyes to show my heritage more openly. Naruto stated as everyone was trying to process this. What crimes and stain did Kushina and her children commit? Choza Akamichi asked and Naruto sighed. For Kushina, the list is extensive to the point she was an Uzumaki only in name since she's a blood traitor. Naruto stated, causing everyone from a clan to gasp in shock. That's not true. I've been an Uzumaki through and through. Kushina stated only to receive a cold, furious glare from Naruto that made her recoil slightly. Really? Then tell me, how often have you sent prayers to Lord Shinigami? Naruto asked, scowling at her, and Kushina was hesitant to answer before she lowered her head and mumbled something. What was that? Speak loud enough for everyone to hear you. Naruto ordered and Kushina gulped. I haven't since I was 7. Kushina stated, making Naruto frown. Did you teach your children to pray to him? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer as Kushina shook her head. Then you are not a full Uzumaki. My clan owes him a great deal and we offer our prayers and services to him should they ever be required. It was because of that bond that he didn't kill Hiruzen Jiji when the Kyuubi was rampaging. Naruto growled at her, making many gain a shocked look as they found out why Hiruzen wasn't killed that night. Naruto-sama, may I inquire on what crimes Kushina has committed? Danzo asked respectfully since he knew the boy was the clan head. Where to even start? One of her most criminal acts are the fact she abandoned her dead kin in Uzu to rot and wither away rather than returning to give them a proper burial. Such disrespect for her kin and the dead is inexcusable, especially since she could have returned any time to do so. Instead, she stayed here whether out of ignorance or cowardice is irrelevant, as an Uzumaki never abandons family or disrespects the dead. Naruto stated, making Kushina flinch back since she was afraid to return and see what had become of her home. Next, she didn't even try to contact the Uzumaki clan summons and tell them what had happened to the clan or become their summoner. They had to find out from me what had happened and what Kushina had done, and as such they had to become heartbroken that they lost every summoner they ever had, and no one bothered to tell them for over a decade so they could properly mourn the loss of their friends and family members. Naruto stated with a glare at Kushina, who widened her eyes as she had truly forgotten all about her clan's summons, and now it was too late to bond and be friendly with them since they no doubt knew about her exile. Next is right here in Konoha. The academy teaches nothing of the Uzumaki, and as such they've slowly become myths except for her and her former children, and there's the fact she's disrespected the clan and Shinigami-sama by letting the Uzumaki shrine become a garbage dump and fall into disrepair. Mito would be rolling over in her grave before going on the warpath for letting such a thing happen. Naruto growled, making Kushina flinch back even more as tears started to build up in her eyes. Then there's what she did with me and her children, participated by abandoning me for 5 years before I got sick of it and left. She and her family didn't even notice that I wasn't even living in the house anymore, nor did they notice I wasn't showing up for meals at all. Then when I show I can do the tree climbing and water walking exercise, she slaps me and screams at me for learning to do it. Never once asking if someone taught me it, just assumed I tried to do it on my own, and such a thing was outrageous as I shouldn't have tried anything unsupervised, yet if one of her children had done it they would have been praised. Naruto stated, shocking the others while the family all flinched and looked saddened. She has upheld none of the spiritual tenets and creeds, none of the Uzumaki values except with those of her choosing, and none of the core laws, as she never should have claimed to be clan head when she wasn't, as such a thing as disrespectful, dishonorable, and deceitful towards the clan. It was why Mito never said she was the clan head before or after Uzu's fall and corrected anyone that said something to the contrary. Naruto stated, making Tsunade nod, as her grandmother never did claim to be clan head, just a representative for the Uzumaki. Her crimes are all long and lengthy, and any other clan would exile or execute her too, since they are equivalent to crimes against the clans too. An example would be an Inuzuka that abuses their canine partner. Naruto stated, making Sume and Hana frown and growl at the thought of someone of their clan doing that with their own canine allies growling in agreement. Or an Aburame that disrespects and hates bugs while killing any and all that they see. Naruto continued, making the two Aburame twitch at the thought. Or a Nara clan member that kills the deer in their forest for sport. Naruto stated, making the two Nara males lose any laziness and gain an edge to their faces. A Yamanaka that uses their mind jutsu on comrades and civilians for fun. The Yamanaka father and daughter both frowned at that thought. An Akamichi that sells out the clan's recipes and medical studies. The Akamichi duo frowned heavily. A Sarutobi who disrespects the will of fire and their comrades. Hiruzen and Asuma both frowned. A Hyuga or Uchiha that tries to sell the secrets of the dojutsu. The Hyuga and Uchiha frowned heavily. My point is that there's no other punishment besides exile or execution. Naruto stated as he stood there. Couldn't you just forgive them? Kaharu asked, and Naruto shook his head. Even if I wanted to, I can't, as then my clan suffers. Naruto stated, drawing confused looks. I clearly stated that Lord Shinigami helped create the Uzumaki clan laws. Did you not think that carried some form of punishment if the laws were broken? Naruto asked, making them blink. The laws and edicts of the Uzumaki clan are directly tied to our blood, which is how and why we coined the term, blood traitors, as betraying the clan causes their own blood to turn against them. Hence why, if you paid attention, you would have noticed Kushina's hair is darker and her eyes are duller compared to how she was when younger. It's not age, it's signs of her blood turning against her. Naruto explained, making many take note of Kushina and saw her hair was a duller shade of red than the bright vibrant red it used to be. Kushina, answer honestly, Have you been losing your capabilities with the adamantine chains? Naruto asked and Kushina gave a surprised look before she hesitantly nodded. Why yes, I can barely make 3 of them anymore. Kushina confessed, surprising everyone but Naruto and Rukia. Exactly, the bloodlines of the Uzumaki clan are leaving you as well and soon you won't even be able to make one. Naruto explained, shocking her and the others. It also extends to her children as they will not have access to the Uzumaki bloodlines any longer. Naruto added to ensure they knew it wasn't just Kushina being punished. The Uzumaki code and way of life is always clan and loyalty to the Shinigami before all. Villages rise and fall, allies become enemies and enemies become allies, locations change, buildings crumble, but your family will always be there for you. However, you always put the clan as a whole over any personal feelings you have, so even if the situation was me as clan head and my own child being the offender, I would still exile them as their offense against the clan hurts the clan and not just them, and I will not allow the clan to suffer because of one person's actions. Naruto stated passionately, showing he was indeed loyal to his clan over anyone or thing else besides the Shinigami. Couldn't you bring them back into the clan? Minato asked and Naruto nodded. I could, but at best they'd be servant or branch members, not main house. Naruto stated, making everyone, but Rukia, look at him in confusion. Like the Hyuga, we have more than one house. The main house was for those of true Uzumaki blood or those who married into the main house. The branch house was anyone we took in from outside the clan and provided sanctuary, a home, and family. In return they were the guardians of the main house and our lands. The servant house is similar to the branch house, but they served as servants, caretakers, or even concubines for members of their choosing. My clan was unique because we took in all kinds of outsiders to become members of the clan and treated them as family and with respect, which is part of the reason Uzu was so feared, since we had samurai, ronin, weapons masters, warriors, soldiers, missing nin, and even some bloodline users from all over the world as our protectors and friends. Naruto informed, making many nod, seeing the intelligence behind such a move as it gave them diversity and protection. Anyway, even if I did take them back, Kushina's children could join the branch since part of their crime was due to Kushina not properly educating them, but they knew enough to know they shouldn't have done such things. Kushina would only be able to join the servant house due to her long and extensive list of crimes. Even then, it would be at my discretion on if they were worthy of being allowed back into the clan at all. Naruto stated, making it clear to Minato that he could push for such a thing all he wanted and he would get shit all for it. Naruto-san, if I may, what about Lady Tsunade? Hasn't she also neglected the Uzumaki clan? Sume asked, since it was a fair point. Naruto, however, shook his head. No, Lady Mito may have been her grandmother, but Tsunade was raised, accepted, treated, and acted as a senju, not an Uzumaki, and even claimed herself as a senju. As such, she's got less of a connection and loyalty to the clan, since you can't betray what you don't know. Had her mother raised her more in the Uzumaki culture and way we do things, then she may be held accountable. However, her mother was more senju than Uzumaki and as such wasn't betraying the clan by holding to one side of the family than the other, as she still gave some core values of the Uzumaki to Tsunade. Naruto stated, making Sume and the others nod, since when a child was from 2 clans it could get complicated on which clan they learned and followed the most. Naruto then brought up another point, and since I am taking the clan head seat, and I know certain idiots will try to claim I am underage to take it, I am enacting the clan survival act and I can fulfill my obligations with it, as I am already engaged to Rukia and have no intention of waiting 2 years to marry her. Naruto continued, knowing that some idiots would try to keep him from taking his seat by stating he was underage, while Rukia merely smiled lovingly at him. The clan heads all nodded, knowing it was his right to do so. You've yet to state why Lady Rukia would fit as your regent, Naruto-san. I don't doubt your decision, but I am curious all the same. Shibi stated and Naruto nodded. Because for the last 5 years, I have educated her on every last edict, tradition, law, procedure, practice, belief, and order that the Uzumaki have, and she has followed all of the requirements to be my wife when the time comes, and as such knows the laws and everything as well as I do. Thus she will ensure the Uzumaki interests are kept and spoken for any time I am out of the village or unable to attend a meeting. Naruto explained as Rukia bowed her head lightly. What are your plans now? Hiyashi asked and Naruto shrugged. My plans? I'm going to marry the women that have a piece of my heart and rebuild my clan. If the gods and luck are kind to me and I find others to love, then I will marry them too. Eventually, I will rebuild Uzu and maybe far down the line live there. Right now, I plan to have Tazuna here help me build an Uzumaki compound around the temple and rebuild it as well so myself and those that will be part of my clan have a place to stay. Naruto stated, making them look at him in surprise at him talking about marrying more than one woman. Women? As in more than one? Mebuki Haruno asked and Naruto nodded. The Uzumaki were regular practitioners of polygamy as we had a lot of love and compassion in us, so if all parties involved were fine with it, then a person could marry any number of individuals. I met and fell in love with quite a few women during my time in Iron Country and they in turn fell for me. When Rukia gave her blessing for me to have a harem, as she called it, the others were overjoyed and refused to stand in the way of any other women falling for me since Rukia could have done the same thing to them. Naruto stated, surprising them all. But that's wrong and immoral. A civilian stated and Naruto merely raised an eyebrow at him. We're ninja. We commit murder for money, we steal for money, we seduce and assassinate for money. We do just about every immoral act in the book in exchange for money. So why the fuck should I care about people getting upset about me marrying and fucking more than one woman? Naruto asked rhetorically and the civilian closed his mouth unable to retort. I'm going to be perfectly blunt. I don't give a shit if someone dislikes me practicing polygamy as myself and those involved are fine with it and Rukia is my queen above the others. I feel no shame, remorse, guilt, or embarrassment and I feel nothing wrong with it since Lord Shinigami has known about the practice and done nothing to object or stop the practice. If the god I pray to has no issue, then I don't care if any mortals do. Naruto stated as he really and truly didn't care if any people had a problem with the way he and his family grew and did things as it was none of their business. We could enact laws to keep you from doing such things. A civilian stated, making Naruto snort. You'd be interfering in clan affairs and thus would be committing treason and would then be executed along with everyone who sides with you. Naruto stated with Hiruzen and the elders nodding since they knew the laws backwards and forwards along with every loophole there was, and the village was not to interfere in clan affairs unless said affairs posed a threat to the village. Even if you could in fact enact such a thing, I could simply resign as a shinobi and take all my clan possessions with me, meaning all the Uzumaki clan accounts, the red spiral on the flak jackets and headbands, any and all knowledge shared by the Uzumaki clan. Liquidate any and all assets held in the village including land and property that people may be living on or using, and call in the debt that the village owes from the First Shinobi War, which is several billion ryo. Naruto stated, making many pale at the threat since he would be in his right to do such a thing and ruin Konoha. As I told Hokage-sama, I came to Konoha because it is convenient, not because I wanted to be here. While it would be a hassle to go to one of the other villages, major or minor, I can do so easily enough and boost them with the Uzumaki bloodline along with anything that I choose to share with them from my clan and anyone that I recruit in the branch house. Naruto stated since while he did have people he cared about here, he could still go to another village very easily. Naruto, seeing he had them fully understanding the situation they were in with him, then turned to Minato again. Now, as to my career as a ninja, Konoha law states that any clan head that is in active duty may choose who their teammates are when on missions. As such, I will take Zabuza Momochi and Haku Momochi as my Jonin sensei and teammate and we will work together until we can find a suitable third teammate. Naruto stated, knowing Minato and Kushina wanted him placed with Kushina to try and reconnect, and honestly he had no interest in doing such a thing. Seeing the defeated and accepted looks on their faces, Naruto continued. I also place Haku Momochi under my clan's protection to ensure she is not forced into anything she doesn't want to do. Naruto stated, giving Minato a look to say that he wasn't letting anyone turn her into a breeding factory, which he nodded to. I will also like to announce now my intention to solidify a clan alliance with the Senju and Uchiha clan. Naruto stated, making the two female heads perk up and smile. Accepted. Tsunade and Makoto stated in unison, causing them to glance at the other, and Naruto nodded. We can work out the details later on. I will announce that I have 3 people in my branch clan already, as Zabuza has agreed to join and 2 of my former teachers of iron are joining as well. However, I will state now that neither those 2 nor any of the women I am courting have an interest in joining Konoha regardless of their skills or talents, They will defend the village if it is attacked, but mainly because of the fact that they are attacking their new home, nothing more. Though, let me be perfectly clear. Naruto stated, making a few frown before the room suddenly dropped in temperature and massive killing intent could be felt, causing the civilians to gasp in fear and panic and the shinobi to tense while the heirs began sweating. Any attempts to force or subjugate them into joining or swearing allegiance to Konoha will be seen as an act of aggression towards my clan, and I will respond in kind. Whether that is through bodily harm or not will be at my discretion. Naruto stated with a coldness to his voice and eyes that showed he meant what he said. Any hostility towards his people would be met with swift and painful justice of Naruto's own making, and he would be ruthless and brutal in it. It won't be a problem, Naruto. Minato stated while internally proud and shocked at the killing intent Naruto was producing, since it showed how much he had grown, but it was also saddening since he had nothing to do with the growth. And just like that, the room returned to normal. Good, with that, I will say good day as I have some matters to attend to. Naruto stated before he left at Minato's nod, with Zabuza, Tazuna, and Rukia following him, and Tsunade quickly followed as well, catching up with them outside the tower. Naruto. Tsunade called, causing Naruto to stop before he was enveloped in a bone-crushing hug while his head was enveloped in one of the biggest pairs of boobs in the world, and Naruto could honestly say they felt like world-class pillows. Rukia merely smiled in amusement at her love's predicament, while Zabuza and Tazuna merely muttered something about lucky bastards before Rukia gave them a sickly sweet smile and had a katana in hand while staring at them. What was that? Rukia asked in a voice and tone that set off all kinds of alarm bells. Nothing. The two males stated, knowing that it was a very bad idea to piss off a woman that could use that tone of voice, and even worse if said woman knew how to use a blade. Rukia merely smiled happily and nodded while the two males' sweat dropped in fear of what her and Naruto's kids would be like. Back to said blonde, he was hugging Tsunade, after freeing his head from the deep valley of her easily K-cup tits, and rubbing her back as she hugged him and cried while muttering, "I'm sorry," over and over again. Tsunade, it's not your fault. You were too preoccupied helping keep the ninja of the village alive to know what was happening with me, and I didn't tell you since I knew you'd go on the warpath and force them to see what they were doing rather than they themselves realizing it. I guess it was a last-ditch effort for them to maybe stop and change things. But they dug their own grave and now they have to lay in it. Naruto stated as he hugged her and kissed her forehead as she sobbed a bit longer. When she finally calmed down, Naruto cupped her face and brought it up before wiping her tears away and smiling at her before he kissed her forehead right over her jewel. Hey, we need to have a serious talk later, okay? There's some things we need to discuss privately, nothing bad, just some things that need to be discussed. Naruto stated, and Tsunade frowned but nodded all the same before she gave him another hug and then moved over to Rukia to introduce herself. Naruto smiled at them before it dropped as he sensed someone behind him. What do you want, Jiraiya? Naruto stated as he looked over his shoulder to see said man about to approach him. Hey, is that any way to talk to your godfather? Jiraiya asked with a grin before a vice-like grip was around his throat and he was picked up off the ground. Do not ever claim to be that again, Jiraiya. You lost that right the moment you ditched me for my former siblings on your misguided belief that you could influence and alter the prophecy. Naruto growled and Jiraiya looked at him in shock. You know? Jiraiya asked in genuine shock and Naruto smirked. Of course I know, my summons were more than willing to tell me about the idiocy of you and the toads and how the prophecy in question broke because of what you caused. As such I'm a free agent until the gods decide to call on me and I can do whatever the fuck I want. Which means, I don't need you, the Namakazes, or anyone that sides or thinks like you. Naruto stated, throwing Jiraiya away, sending him tumbling through the dirt, and he stopped at Minato and his family's feet. Naruto, please, we are sorry about what happened. Minato stated and Naruto just looked at him. Okay, you're sorry, so what? Your apologies mean nothing to me. You and your family mean nothing to me. You could be spiteful, hateful bigots for all I care and I wouldn't feel any different about you. Naruto stated, shocking the two adults. Hey. Don't be an ass just because you're jealous we had to be trained to use Kyuubi's chakra. Arashi stated angrily, causing the adults to frown and glare at him before they turned back to Naruto as he started laughing loudly. Me? Jealous of you too? That's rich. I have nothing to be jealous of, especially since you lot are still not using your brains and seeing the big picture with just what it was that you've been doing. Naruto stated, looking at the confused group in amusement. What do you mean? Minato asked, and Naruto scoffed. The Shinigami split Kyuubi's chakra from his body and then split the chakra between those two while the body was sealed into me. However, you three in your so-called infinite wisdom decided to train the two of them using the chakra. But ask yourself this. If the chakra was sealed in them, then how are they accessing it? Naruto asked, causing the group to frown, and Naruto scoffed again. Oh, the wise seal masters don't know a simple answer. Naruto stated sarcastically when calling them seal masters. Let me spell it out. You are opening the seal to let them use the chakra, but you're missing something important when doing that. Naruto stated as the group still frowned in confusion, and Naruto merely laughed. You basically have been opening a storage seal repeatedly, and since you have no part of Kyuubi's physical self sealed inside, there's nothing to replenish the chakra and let you keep accessing it. To put it plainly, all you've been doing is emptying their seal and giving Kyuubi back his chakra, since each bit of chakra freed from the seal is sent back to the body like when you disperse shadow clones. Thus Kyuubi has been regaining his power, which I can access since I've actually bonded with him instead of sealing him up like a damn prisoner like Kushina did. So, to be polite, thank you for only adding to my power and wasting so much time training them for nothing. Naruto stated, causing the five to widen their eyes, and just to prove his point, Naruto let Kyuubi's chakra cloak him and making his eyes go blood red with slitted pupils, his fangs lengthened, his fingers became claws, and his whisker marks grew darker and thicker. Thanks to your stupidity and incompetence, I'm even stronger than I would have been had you actually thought things through, while your two precious children are getting weaker and weaker each time you have them use Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto stated in a much darker voice before the cloak dissipated like it was never there. With that, I say goodbye to you all. Naruto stated as he turned his back on them. Wait, me, Kushina, and Minato are all S-ranked shinobi, there's still a lot we can teach you. Jiraiya called out, knowing that was their last card to play to get Naruto's interest. Naruto stopped and looked at them in amusement. And what could you possibly train me in? I know summoning. I know sealing and the Uzumaki clan arts better than any of you, thanks to me having all the knowledge of Uzu at my disposal. I trained under dozens of S-ranked individuals while in Iron Country, so training under 3 of you is nothing to me. I've already told the Toads that I am not going to be their summoner, and they've accepted that fact and respect me for it, though my summons and I did let them teach me some staff and sword combat as well as their taijutsu. And, if you're thinking about the Rasengan, Naruto listed off before raising his hand, showing a perfect Rasengan in his hand, shocking them all. When you have the basic concept, it's very easy to replicate since it's actually very similar to a chakra exercise the Uzumaki have in a couple of jutsu they created. However, unlike you, Minato, I finished it and even improved it in a variety of ways. Naruto stated, shocking them, and it only increased as he closed his hand around the Rasengan, forcing it to compact down to the size of a marble, and balanced it on his index finger before creating another 4 on his other fingers. Naruto then flicked them up into the air, causing the compressed balls of chakra to explode, causing a large gust of wind to come into existence and kick some dust up. Naruto, though, kept his gaze on the group as the wind died down and dust settled. So, as I said, you all have nothing I need, want, or should know. You lost any and all chance to ever call me family, so get it into your heads, move on, and deal with it. Naruto stated before he turned and fully walked away with his group after saying goodbye to Tsunade, who merely looked at the stunned and saddened group before walking away, knowing they were dealing with the fallout of their own actions. She did feel bad for them slightly, but she held to the values her mother and grandmother taught her about always looking out for and protecting family. Family meant that no one gets left behind or forgotten, and the Namikaze family and Jiraiya had done just that with Naruto. Maybe if they were lucky they could become friends with Naruto down the line, but she knew enough of how a true Uzumaki acts from Mito to know that Naruto would never call them family again. Now she just had to wonder what it was that he needed to talk to her about. She felt that it wasn't bad, though she didn't know how she felt, knew that, but wasn't going to question it. She'd just have to wait and find out what it was and hope it wasn't something migraine-inducing. Later, Uzumaki Shrine. Naruto frowned at the sight of the Uzumaki Shrine, which was a holy site for the Uzumaki to show their close relations with Konoha and give any members within Konoha a place to pray and meditate in peace. Contrary to what people believed, His clan meditated regularly to center themselves spiritually and feel a deeper connection to the Shinigami and the world as a whole. However, they didn't do this in public much as it was so noisy and they wanted peace and quiet to meditate and focus. A few had learned to do it despite the noise and distractions as it helped with discipline, which is part of what inspired the monks that had helped in Naruto's training, and they in turn helped him learn to block out distractions when meditating, whether it was noise, the weather, or any form of discomfort he felt. However, none of that mattered right now as he saw the state that the shrine had been reduced to and knew his clansmen would all be rolling in their graves at seeing the place in such a state. With him were Tazuna, Rukia, Haku, and Olvia, who were also frowning at the sight of the temple. Tazuna was there to see what he had to work with to rebuild the temple and to build the compound as they wanted. Rukia was there to work with Naruto and Tazuna to design and build their new home as well as help with things. Haku was there to spend time with Naruto and act as a guard since she was technically part of the branch house with Zabuza and the demon brothers. So, it was her duty to protect and guard Naruto even if he didn't need it. Olvia was there to get out and stretch her legs, plus she wanted to see the shrine since she was fascinated with history and architecture, and the Uzumaki had one of the longest, if not the longest, records of recorded history in the world. Naruto merely sighed before creating and sending his clones out to clean out the trash, junk, and other crap that people had dumped in and around the shrine. If it wasn't for the fact that he'd get more problems out of it, he'd hunt down and kill every person who had a hand in trashing the place. However, that didn't mean he couldn't make their lives hell from now on, since he did have his Uzumaki pranking talents and Kurama's influence had only added to his mischievousness. However, that would come later as he needed to focus on here and now. With that thought, Naruto began walking around the area telling Tazuna what he had in mind and planned, while informing him to spare no expense and that Naruto and his clones would provide plenty of labor to help get everything done so long as Tazuna was there to keep them organized and doing things right. Rukia chimed in occasionally with her own thoughts and encouraged Haku and Olvia to do the same since they may think of something that slipped by them in the planning phase. Of course, Naruto and Rukia were going to do a final run-through with the others to get their input and ideas as well, since they deserved to have their own say in their future home. Right now was just to get the basic layout and design ready since the compound walls and such were a given, as well as the fact Naruto wanted the shrine in the center as well. Once the basic idea was set, Naruto let Rukia and the others walk around the area to see what would be left and what would be moved or repurposed while he went inside the shrine. A few in the know people probably knew of the treasured mask that was hidden within the temple, since it allowed one to call on the Shinigami and free a soul that said deity had eaten. However, that was only part of it. There was more than the mask hidden here, and the mask did much more when used by a true Uzumaki. While Naruto had no intention of using said mask right now, he planned to keep it with him and away from any greedy hands that would try to steal it, knowing it would be much more difficult to do such a thing when Naruto set up his compound around the temple. Besides, he wanted the other items hidden within the shrine as they'd help him later on. So, first thing they did was go to the center of the shrine and pray and offer his thanks and respect to Shinigami and his ancestors before he went to a wall in the back and saw dozens upon dozens of masks lining it and quickly went to the one that he knew was the mask of the Shinigami. However, when he touched it, it shifted to be a black fox mask with blood-red eye slots, and Naruto smiled at it. "So I can wear as I please, huh? Thanks," Naruto stated as he thumbed his rosary beads with a smile before he attached the mask to his waist and then took a fake mask he had made in iron out of a seal and placed it on the wall to ensure no one could tell that one was taken. Heading back to the main room, Naruto approached a statue of an Uzumaki monk resting in a prayer position and called his shakuho to his hands and waved it over the monk's head as well as tapping it lightly on the shoulders. "May your prayers reach and be answered by the Shinigami as ordained by our ancestors when we made our covenant with him. Let your faith speak for itself in the eyes of Shinigami and let he judge if you are worthy of his blessings," Naruto stated as a seal came over the statue and the statue shifted to a bowing position and slid back, revealing a wrapped bundle, and Naruto grabbed said bundle and sealed it away before placing his rosary hand on the monk's head. "The Shinigami hears your prayers and sanctifies you in your call. Honor to the Shinigami and family above all. This is our way, the Uzumaki way," Naruto stated as the seals of the statue glowed again before moving back over the spot that the bundle was and was now in a meditating position. Naruto merely smiled as he walked to the center of the room and slammed his shakuho into the floor, causing a large seal array to appear, and it glowed before the dust, dirt, filth, and damage began to fade away as the torches sprung to life, lighting the shrine entirely. Naruto looked around and nodded to himself as he walked out of the shrine with his staff in hand and paused at the entrance as he could see the souls of various Uzumaki there smiling at him. He smiled back and bowed in respect to his ancestors and kin, which they returned before they faded away, and Naruto smiled more as he walked away, intent on ensuring everyone knew that the Uzumaki weren't defeated yet and all their enemies would pay for what they had done. Blood and death to their enemies, glory and honor to their family and God. The past 2 weeks had been interesting for everyone in Konoha as word spread of Naruto being back. While quite a few were upset at his return, they didn't dare do anything after the first few days. Why? Well, some idiots tried to intimidate Naruto and force him to be their punching bag again, only for him to use them as training dummies before leaving them broken in the middle of the street for someone else to deal with. The Anbu got them to the hospital, though they took their sweet time doing it, but they weren't able to save some of the limbs of those idiots due to the damage done. Complaining did no good as Minato literally threw the people who complained out his office window, not caring where they landed or who cleaned them up when they did land. He did ask Naruto not to make too much of a mess if the idiots tried something again, since broken bodies and blood and other bodily items on the ground didn't paint a good picture for any visitors to the village. Naruto hadn't gotten his meeting with Tsunade yet as she was busy with the idiots he sent to the hospital and her natural work, while he had his own work of getting his clan home built, training with his new team and clan members, and doing missions with his team. Both their schedules were full and thus there was no time to sit and have an in-depth talk. Speaking of his team, despite Zabuza being the sensei, Naruto was teaching him just as much as he was helping Naruto. Reason being was that Zabuza hadn't had a real sword fight in years, so training with Naruto, Tusen, and Geralt was getting him back into shape as well as helping him expand his skill with his sword. Naruto even further helped by making his sword adjustable via seals on it. Now he could keep it as a Zanbato or reduce the size to a Tanto or anything in between as he desired or wanted. Naruto did this mainly because of 2 reasons. 1. A Zanbato was as much a slave to its size as the opponent was, and thus you could only swing it in the 4 cardinal and the 4 ordinal directions with no room to improvise and maneuver the blade. 2. A Zanbato was not ideal for cramped spaces or close quartz combat as you needed reach and brute force to fully use it, whereas if it's shorter you can have speed and precision. To ensure Zabuza kept his muscle mass, he added a seal that could keep the weight the same even if it was shorter, but Zabuza could control the weight. It would make for devastating attacks if he kept the blade light for speed, and then just as he's about to connect with a target, he increased the weight to maximum, giving plenty of extra power from gravity and the weight to his hits. Naruto also worked with him on hand-to-hand combat, so he was prepared should he lose his blade in the middle of a fight. He also recommended keeping the blade heavy as often as he could because he'd be able to move much faster if he did lighten the blade or lost it for whatever reason. He also got Haku in on sword training when he presented her with one of the swords his clan kept hidden, Hiranmaru. It was a blade of high quality and it seemed to resonate with Haku, so he gave it to her as he was supposed to, since the blade always chose the wielder. He wasn't going to risk backlash by denying the sword the person it chose to wield it, thus he and the others began training her to use it effectively. Namely focusing speed and agility, since she was never going to outmuscle someone like Zabuza, but she could outmaneuver and dodge to get openings to strike. Some could argue Tsunade's strength technique would be helpful for Haku, but Naruto knew it wasn't as versatile as Tsunade had people believe, as it wasn't natural strength and it only enhanced your strength to a certain degree. The Demon Brothers were training hard as well, since they wanted to show they were worthy of being part of Naruto's clan and make Konoha happy that they took them in. So they were training as hard as they could while also improving their tactics, since their puddle ambush needed quite a bit of work. Naruto was adding to their arsenal beyond their claws and chains, since options saved your ass on the battlefield more often than not. His rescued people were trying to find things they could do around the village. They had decided to stay in Konoha, and mainly hung around Naruto's group, but hadn't decided on if they would join Naruto's clan, partly because a few didn't know what they would do or what pressures it would entail. So, Naruto sat down with each of them in Rukia and talked with them on what they could do, what they wanted to do, what they liked to do, etc. etc. Catalya was a cream-skinned MILF, mature not mother, of a woman with large N-cup tits that once were nearly on display from the apron-style dress she wore, and her big bouncy ass was also practically on display as her outfit rode up her ass crack, leaving her cheeks out to jiggle and bounce as she walked, though the other girls talked her into going shopping with them to change it since she could wear that at home, but wearing it in the village was going to cause problems both for her and Naruto. Now she wore attire similar to Tsunade, only hers was purple in color and the tights hugged her legs and ass a lot more. She had black hair that was done up in a bun and ponytail, hazel eyes that were accentuated by a pair of cute glasses, black leather gloves on her hands, and black calf high-heeled boots. Helping her was easy as she loved forging, blacksmithing, and weapons to a near fanatical level. So Naruto was helping set her up with an old forge and weapons store that had been closed down and let her do as she pleased. He even offered to set up a forge on the clan grounds so she could work at home and maybe have some apprentices in the future. Catalya was naturally ecstatic and happy at the offer and promised to properly show her thanks in the future. Olvia was a tanned-skinned woman with flowing silver hair, piercing blue eyes, a slim figure, and tight ass with long legs. Her attire was a blue tank top that showed off her cleavage, pale green hip-hugging pants with a gold loop belt, black-heeled boots, a silver trench coat, and a gold bead necklace. She was interested in history, reading, and learning a variety of new things. Naruto suggested she take up a job at the village's library so she could spend time among hundreds of books. Once he had it built, she could browse Naruto's entire library except what was restricted for the main house of the clan. Olvia was grateful, especially since she could read the Uzumaki history in the future as well as study their culture and ways of doing things. Belmir was a true-to-form tomboy as she practically exuded a fierceness and no shit-taking attitude, but her body showed she was a woman in all the right areas. She had red hair, though there wasn't much of it as she kept the sides of her head, and most of the top shaved down for whatever reason she chose, rust-colored eyes, a set of E-cup-s, slender legs, toned body, and a perky ass. Her attire was a simple blue button-up shirt, jeans, and black-heeled sandals. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do, but she did confess she liked tending to plants and trees as she used to have a tangerine grove before the Gato mess. Naruto, of course, offered to set her up an area to grow whatever she wanted since he planned out a large area to use as a garden, both for normal plants and for those used in poisons, salves, and medicines. Belmir was grateful, and until she had something useful to do, she was acting as a protector, escort for Tsunami, Yumi, and Megumi since they were the only three among the entire group that weren't fighters, though Yumi and Megumi both knew how to use poisons, but that wasn't always helpful if you were attacked. There was also a bit of reunion as Belmir and Yumi knew each other very well. Apparently Belmir met and looked out for her when they were younger, and then Yumi had set out to start her own dream of seeing the world and studying her preferred interests. When she wound up meeting Naruto in Hot Water Country, and him consequently saving her, she decided to tag along to help stay out of trouble and see more of the world. Then she fell for him and the rest is history. Now the two were catching up and bonding some more with Belmir teasing Yumi about Naruto. Bronwyn was a gorgeous beauty with flowing auburn hair, silver eyes, tanned skin, G-cup-s, a big bouncy ass, a fit body that showed she trained regularly, wide hips, and powerful long legs. Her attire needed changing too with the girls' help since she only had a white bra with a chain across her cleavage, a fishnet corset around her midriff, and a pair of white bikini bottoms. Now she had a black sports bra, red sleeveless vest that she left partially unzipped, gold metal cuffs, black tights, heeled Spartan sandals, and a simple chain choker on her neck. She was a hard one to help since she grew up as a slave fighter in underground fighting arenas. All she knew was fighting, killing, and maintaining her gear. So, Naruto had her go with Olvia to the library and to look into a variety of things and see what she enjoyed. If she didn't find anything, she could work with Catalya, helping to sharpen and maintain anything she created. Until that time, she was working with Belmir as a guard for the couple women that didn't know how to fight, or she was sparring and training with the others to keep in shape. Aya was a darker-skinned woman than Olvia, but lighter-skinned than Yoruichi. She was an athletic woman with braided black hair, onyx eyes, E-cup-s, a lean and fit body showing she regularly stayed in shape, and a tight ass that begged to be spanked. Her attire was a white cloth shirt and pants that she then placed a yellow shawl over her left shoulder and had a blue skirt around her waist that primarily covered the left side. She had Spartan sandals, leather bracers, 2 belts crisscrossed at her waist, and pauldrons on along with a simple cord necklace that had an eagle skull hanging from it. Around her neck was a hood that looked like a simple scarf unless she pulled it up. She was similar to Bronwyn somewhat in that she primarily knew how to fight. Where they differed was that she knew how to maintain a home as well as perform assassinations. Aya had been tracking down and killing a group of bandits that had attacked her home one day while she was at a nearby town to get groceries. She returned to find her home destroyed and her husband and 6-year-old son dead. So she began training herself as best she could and began tracking and killing the different members, only to get caught after killing a few and was then sold into slavery, luckily untouched since the leader wanted the highest price possible for her. Naruto immediately set about training her to fight better as well as helping her learn some of the arts of assassination that he learned and drilling her into the ground in how to properly fight while also promising her to have his information network looking for the other bandits for her. Naturally, she was grateful for the gesture and promised to show her thanks and prove herself worthy of the trouble. Lilith was red-haired and had said hair swooshed to her right, gold eyes, pale skin, full pink lips, and she had blue tribal markings showing on different parts of her skin. She had DDS, tight ass, lean and fit body, long fit legs, and wide hips. Her attire consisted of tight-fitting brown leather pants, black knee-high boots, red halter tank top that showed off her tits, a yellow zip-up vest that she stopped just under her tits, and then a tan and black half jacket with short sleeves to finish her look. She was also a bit of a conundrum since she was actually a treasure hunter and explorer for a long time while taking up the odd bounty to hunt for money as well. She missed her shot at a bounty and got captured for it before being sold off. She liked reading, training, weapons, and gambling, which made it a bit easier to find hobbies but not really for what she could do full-time. She could fight though. She had a unique bloodline that worked like Jiraiya's camouflage jutsu, the Hyuga's gentle fist, and a high fire release. She could cloak for a limited time, release bursts of chakra from her hands as concussive blasts, and could manipulate fire to a degree. She also had a thing for knives and was adequately skilled with them and was acting as a guard for the girls too while also teaching said girls how to use a knife if necessary. As for his future clan home, it was progressing well since Tazuna's skill combined with Naruto's wealth and his army of clones meant the work could be done quickly and efficiently without risking poor materials. So far they had the shrine repaired completely, the area cleared, the foundation for the main house and a few branch houses set up, and the area marked out for the wall around the area. It was a good start but not enough as Naruto wanted several things to be done still such as an onsen. Both a private one for himself and his lovers and one for the others to use, with precautions taken so no one could do any peeping. A training ground and building since some exercises needed, benefited from the enclosed space, armory, the library, at least a dozen or so homes, and plenty of room to expand if needed since seals could allow them to make the area bigger than it really was when needed, but the bigger the area the more intricate the seals had to be. Not that that was a problem since Naruto had been studying Uzumaki-grade seals for years and thus had a very intricate and detailed understanding of them and their different functions. When he wasn't doing those items, he and his team were doing missions. C to B rank as Zabuza wasn't putting up with D rank shit not when he knew both of his students could handle combat easily enough. If there wasn't an available C or B rank mission, they stayed in the village and trained or did work for the compound. Of course, Naruto also saw some of his people as he went on missions with Itomi's team and of course introduced them to his girls especially since he was fine with them coming to train with his group. He saw Kurenai when they weren't busy and introduced her to the others as well as offering to help her train since she had let some of her other skills slack while she focused on her genjutsu. It was nice to have a specialty, but you shouldn't let your other skills slack off either. Of course, he had dinner with Makoto and introduced her to the others and was glad to see her getting back into shape. He could also tell the Konoha girls were slightly jealous, saddened by some of his foreign girls having much bigger assets than them. But Naruto ensured they knew he cared about them beyond their bodies. Naturally, he saw Hiruzen and Bawako and had dinner with the Sarutobis to catch up and talk about things, both business and not, and was happy to introduce them to Rukia and a few others of his girls. Anko, Yugo, and Hana hadn't been seen yet, which he chalked up to them being out of the village on business. While Yugo was an Anbu guard for the Hokage and Anko was one of the chief officers of the T.I. department, they were still sent on missions if they were the best qualified for them, or at the very least there was no one else that could do the job that was available. He had already talked with Kurenai into doing a bit of a surprise for them when they did return to the village. Another thing he needed to get done was set up things for his current lovers, since he didn't want them just laying around the compound all day, and he needed to talk to Tsunade to get 3 of them situated, since Hana, Triss, and Megumi were planning to help at the hospital, and since that was essentially Tsunade's turf, they needed her approval to start working there. The others would need to wait a while for him to help get things set up, since some wanted a shop, some wanted to do some specific work, and some were happy maintaining the home for him and their sisters. Rukia was already busy attending meetings as regent for the Uzumaki clan while he was busy with other things, and she wasn't afraid to make her voice heard in different matters, especially when it came to putting the idiot civilians into their place as they tried to protest reintegrating the Uzumaki clan back into the history books and classes, and then further when she was pushing for more training, classes, and education for the academy. Rukia pulled no punches when it came to the academy, especially when it came to kunoichi, tea ceremonies, flower arranging, extremely basic ed for seduction, sewing, and other nonsense. Were they teaching kunoichi or concubines and housewives? Some of those things could be useful for kunoichi that were undercover, but there needed to be enough for them to be lethal as well as blending in. The idiots tried protesting, stating that young girls shouldn't have to train in the harsher things, with Rukia countering that they shouldn't be entering the ninja program to begin with then, since there are times that you don't get a say in taking a mission or not, you're ordered and you go and perform. As her lover said, they kill for money, they seduce for money, they steal for money. They do all the jobs that samurai can't do because it would draw too much attention to their lord or stain their honor if they did. The ninja career wasn't some stupid fairy tale where women were safe and protected by knights in shining armor and the men only killed the evilest of people. No, women were raped, brutalized, sold into slavery, and treated like cattle in many areas. Men slaughtered entire villages when it was necessary and killed by the hundreds when war came. The latter was evidenced by the 4th Hokage having killed over a quarter of Iwa's forces in the last war by himself. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd had caused just as much damage, just not in one battle. If the civilian children couldn't take it, then they could shut up and quit, otherwise all they had to look forward to was death or worse. Finally Rukia gave the ultimatum that either the village would improve the education at the academy or she would speak with Naruto and privately fund the changes of the academy. Meaning only she and he would be picking what was taught and the village would have to suck it up if they didn't like what was being taught. Naturally they tried to protest, but Rukia pointed out the fact that as a private citizen and donating money to the academy, it was at her and Naruto's discretion on how it was spent, or they'd simply pull their funding from the academy. Hiruzen finally broke the argument by stating the village could afford such a thing and suggested to Minato that they meet over this again after the Chunin exams, since they were coming up soon and the village needed to prepare, both for the clients and for the visiting participants. Minato had agreed and Rukia accepted, while mentioning that each person there should make a list of classes that should be taught and provide reasoning and uses for having the classes implemented, which was also accepted, much to the annoyance of the idiots. The Chunin exams being imminent also leads us to here and now, as Naruto and his team were in the Hokage's office as a slight problem had occurred. "You're serious?" Naruto asked in a neutral tone as he, Zabuza, and Haku stood in front of Minato, who nodded. "I'm afraid so. You need a 3rd member of your team, or you won't be able to compete in the exams. Not only is it rare to unlikely for there to be a 3-person squad, but you and Haku could have some unfair advantages due to there only being 2 of you. You've still got a couple months, but you'll need to hurry since there's a cutoff point." Minato stated, knowing he couldn't show any favor in this matter. Teams had to be 3 members, no more no less. Minato also couldn't help but take in the changes Naruto had gone through since, as he had claimed it would. His hair was now a deep crimson now and his eyes a dark purple from the usual Uzumaki purple mixing with his deep cerulean blue eyes. Aside from some facial features, there really wasn't anything that showed he was even remotely related to Minato anymore. Same for his wife and children, as Kushina's hair was now a very dull red and her eyes were only a slight purple, while his children now had more of his looks than that of an Uzumaki. It merely cemented what Naruto claimed about his clan and them. Minato broke from his thoughts as Naruto sighed, Very well, we'll try to find a third teammate before the exam's deadline. Naruto stated, making Minato nod before dismissing them. He hoped they'd find someone, but Minato had no way to help them as there was no one on the roster available. Most were either on long-term missions trying to advance to Chunin outside of the exams or were recovering from wounds that wouldn't heal till past the deadline. Even if some could be healed, there was still rehab and therapy to go through before they were cleared for active duty again. Worst comes to worst, Naruto could have one of his younger companions enlist as a shinobi just for the exams, and then they could resign as soon as the individual part of them started. Of course, that decision was up to Naruto since Minato doubted he wanted any of his companions involved if it could be helped. Minato would just have to wait and see what happens. With Naruto, he sighed as he walked with Haku to get some lunch with the civilians, giving them a wide berth while some were still glaring and scowling. So now we need to find a teammate or we can't enter the exams. Naruto stated as Haku nodded as she walked beside him wearing a more form-fitting battle kimono that had a slit up the left side showing the entirety of her left leg as she walked. The kimono also showed off her CC cup creases, slim figure, and bubble butt, while her hair was now in a braided bun with two chopsticks holding it in place. Of course, Naruto knew those chopsticks were both sharpened and coated in poison for an unsuspecting weapon. It would appear so, Naruto-kun. Haku stated as she was happy to get to have lunch alone with him since she had developed quite the crush in her new lord over the course of the past 2 weeks. She was struggling a bit to not go fangirl over him. It took her a week to not blush or stutter in his presence, something Rukia teased her over and only used it to further embarrass her when Rukia decided to sample her and ensure she knew what her future husband was getting. She apparently passed as Rukia agreed to help her learn to relax and be comfortable with her duality around Naruto. It was that reason she had no underwear on at all. Rukia gave reasons for how it would help her, but Haku believed it was for her own fun and making sure Haku was obedient to Rukia's orders. Not that Haku cared, sure it was embarrassing the first few days, but Haku quickly adjusted and now enjoyed the thrill. Naruto knew she wasn't wearing any as she had flashed him several times during spars against him. Even though all he did was smirk, the smirk told her all she needed to know to get a larger thrill. Haku also believed Naruto knew about her lack of underwear from the beginning, but decided not to comment for whatever reason. Not that it mattered since Haku now only wore panties when there was a good chance someone else could see up her dress. That was partly why she was thankful for Rukia putting a seal on her that allowed her to summon panties onto herself or remove them at a moment's notice. She could go without, and if she needed them she could have them on without anyone, but Naruto, being the wiser. Arriving at the location, Haku smiled seeing it was Ichiraku ramen since she had acquired her own taste for the stuff in the past 2 weeks. She had joked with the girls that becoming part of the Uzumaki clan meant gaining a love of ramen as a side effect, which the girls laughed at since they found they all didn't mind eating the stuff often. Maybe it was an Uzumaki thing, or maybe Ichiraku and Naruto just knew how to make ramen that was irresistible to everyone. Given that Ichiraku had been making ramen for decades and the Uzumaki had dozens of ramen stands and near thousands of ramen recipes, either one was possible. Entering the stand, the two smiled at Ayame Ichiraku, owner and operator of the stand. Ayame had inherited the stand from her father, who had passed away a few years ago. Ayame had been heartbroken by it, but she had support from people, especially since she and her father were close to Naruto, so his friends came and supported the stand. Kushina and her kids came by occasionally, but the coldness from Tucci and Ayame kind of ruined the mood for going. Sitting down at the bar, the two smiled as Ayame came out in her usual blouse, skirt, and heeled sandals with her bandana keeping her hair out of her face. Of course, she had 2 buttons undone on her blouse, making her EE cup S stand out even more as she smiled at the two, always seeming to know when Naruto was going to stop by and look her best, and whyest when he was. "Hey, you two, the usual?" Ayame asked in her usual cheery tone. "Please and thank you," the two said while giving her a smile as well, and she nodded and promptly began cooking and prepping several bowls worth of ramen. "So how's business?" Haku asked and Ayame smiled. "Good, though I wish I had some help and a bit more room," Ayame stated as Naruto looked around and smiled. "You know, there's plenty of room to expand here, and I have some lovely ladies who are bored and love to cook," Naruto stated as Ayame smiled at him. "That's sweet, Naruto, and appreciated, but I don't have that kind of money." Ayame stated with a bit of sadness since she wanted to make the stand into something beyond even her dad's wildest dreams. Which is why I'm proposing helping you. Naruto stated as they got their first bowl. I don't want charity, Naruto. Even if you don't consider it such. Ayame stated and Naruto chuckled a bit. Which is why I'm proposing investing in the stand instead or even buying a part of. Nowhere near enough to take it from you, but enough to help your conscience about me helping financially. Naruto stated after swallowing a mouth of noodles, making Ayame frown a bit as she wasn't sure. I don't know, Naruto. I feel bad taking your money in any form. Ayame stated and Naruto smiled softly. How about this then? I'll take you to dinner and we can talk about it in detail and you can decide then. Naruto offered, making Ayame stiffen with a blush while Haku tried not to choke on a mouthful of noodles. That is, Ayame stuttered, making Naruto smile. I don't think I've ever seen you at a loss for words before. Naruto stated with a roguish smirk on his face that only made Ayame blush harder. I'm not sure Rukia would want me to do that. Ayame stated and Naruto chuckled. Are you kidding? When we were talking of making a harem, she essentially ordered me to ensure you and the others I was close to had a shot at being in said harem. If I didn't give you a chance, Rukia would be annoyed. Naruto stated with his smile turning gentle and more loving towards her. Are you sure? Ayame asked as she served another 2 bowls before Naruto grabbed her hand. Please, Ayame, will you please go on a date with me? Naruto asked softly, making Ayame blush even more to the point she had steam coming out of her ears and Haku was giving her a jealous look. Yes, I'd love to, Ayame said with a small smile as Naruto smiled and kissed her hand before letting her go, letting her walk over and keep preparing the ramen as Naruto began eating. Haku looked down as she began to pick at her ramen, figuring she hadn't shown she was good enough to be with him yet. However, she stiffened and blushed as his right hand began caressing her thigh under her kimono and she was getting covered in goosebumps as he gently caressed her leg with his fingers, tracing her thigh all over. Naruto-sama. Haku squeaked quietly as she tried not to move too much, though it was hard, especially when his hand trailed up and began caressing the outside of her butt cheek. You'll get your chance if you want it, Haku-chan, but I've known Ayame longer, I've cared about her longer, and I've got a history with her. You're still new to me, new to my girls, so it takes time. My girls trust Ayame to a higher degree because I do. It's nothing aimed at you, it's just I don't know you as well as I know her. I know her feelings aren't a crush that may change with time, or maybe using her body to help secure her and her precious person a place of safety and protection against their threats. Naruto stated, glancing at her, and she could tell he didn't mean the last insinuation, but it was something most people would consider, and based on how protective his girls were of him, they no doubt had considered it. I understand. I promise I'll be patient. Haku stated before her breath hitched as his hand traced to the inside of her thigh and he was inches from her womanhood and was getting closer and closer. Good, as Rukia no doubt told you, being a good girl gets good things. Naruto stated with a small smirk as Haku blushed and she felt her womanhood quiver at that statement. Yes sir, Haku stated before Naruto slowly withdrew his hand, dragging his index finger along the entire length of her thigh as he did. Good girl, Naruto stated before drinking the broth of his current bowl and starting on the next one, while Haku now had to rub her thighs together as she ate her food. Once the two had finished, Naruto paid with a nice tip on top of the bill. I'll be in touch when I have the date ready. I know you'll want time to get ready. Naruto stated with a smile as Ayame nodded with a dreamy smile and a big blush across her face. I'll be waiting, Ayame stated as Naruto smiled and left with Haku. But the two didn't make it far before Shizune found them. Naruto-kun, Shizune called as she came up, making the two stop and face her. Tsunade-sama wanted me to inform you that she's free later tonight to talk with you about whatever you wanted to discuss. Shizune stated and Naruto nodded. Thank you Shizune, I'll be over tonight to talk with her. Naruto stated, making Shizune nod with a smile before she left with a sway in her hips, making her ass bounce and jiggle in her dress as she did, making Haku sigh. You really do attract a lot of attention, Haku stated as Naruto laughed. Not intentionally, just seems to be the case when I am just being me. Naruto stated as they kept walking for home. He'd worry about a teammate later, what he had to discuss with Tsunade was more important anyway. That night, Senju residence. Naruto was dressed casually, but still pleasantly, as he had a black button-up shirt with the top 3 buttons undone, black pants, and enclosed shoes. He wanted to look nice but not be overly dressed up, since this was just a casual meeting with a possibility of dinner. Knocking on the door, he waited a long moment before the door opened, showing Tsunade there in her usual outfit minus the coat, and she smiled brightly at him. "You're here, great," Tsunade stated as she let him in, and he smiled at her before giving her a peck on her cheek. "Something smells good," Naruto stated as there was a smell of food in the air. "Just some miso soup. Shizune is working at the hospital for me, but she had already got everything for it and I promised to save her some," Tsunade stated, and Naruto nodded as she closed the door and they sat down in the living room. "So, what is it that you wanted to talk about? You said it wasn't anything bad, but that doesn't mean it was good either," Tsunade stated as Naruto nodded with a sigh. "When I was in Whirlpool, I found something that concerns us," Naruto stated as he looked right at her. "I found a marriage contract between the Senju and Uzumaki clans," Naruto stated, and Tsunade frowned. "So? That was fulfilled by my grandfather and grandmother," Tsunade stated, but Naruto shook his head. "No, the contract was created by Hashirama Senju and Meiko Uzumaki, with Mito signing it as a witness," Naruto stated, surprising her. "It states that if either or both clans are reduced to single digits, the contract will be enacted and the last child of that clan will marry the first eligible partner. Since I am now the last known male Uzumaki and you're the last Senju, the contract has been enacted between us," Naruto informed, making Tsunade nod. "I see, and you and Rukia aren't happy about this," Tsunade stated, looking down before she felt Naruto move next to her and cup her face before making her look at him and see he had a small smile on his face. "I admit, it took me by surprise and Rukia was also surprised, but neither of us were angry or upset. I care about you, Tsunade, both as a friend and as family. Rukia has great respect for you for me telling her about you. Our only concern was that we didn't want to force you into this, since there was a likelihood you had no such feelings for me. I'm not going to say that I don't love you or think of you that way, but I want to get to know you even more, except now I want to know you as a woman, not just my famous godmother who loves me," Naruto stated, making Tsunade look at him in shock. "So, what you're saying is," Tsunade started and Naruto finished, "that unless you don't want this, I'm perfectly fine being engaged to you. The contract doesn't say how long we have to be engaged for, so we have plenty of time to get to know each other and figure out if we want to get married to each other," Naruto stated with a smile as Tsunade nodded. "Guess I'm a cougar now," Tsunade stated, and Naruto eyed her up and down, making her blush a bit at the intensity of his gaze. "You definitely have the body for it," Naruto stated, licking his lips, making her shiver and blush more. "Don't tease, I'm old enough to be your grandmother," Tsunade stated before looking down, causing Naruto to frown. "What?" Naruto asked, and Tsunade sighed. I'm at the point that it's severely unlikely I'll get pregnant, and I always wanted to be a mother," Tsunade stated as some tears went down her face, and Naruto smiled softly before wiping her tears away and giving her a small kiss on the lips, making her widen her eyes slightly. "Don't worry about that, there's a way to do it, I'm sure, but for now we can focus on getting closer to each other and figure things out as we go, deal?" Naruto asked, and Tsunade smiled and nodded. "Deal," Tsunade stated as Naruto smiled as well. "Great, now how about we eat? I'm sure the soup is done by now and I want to get to know Tsunade Senju, the woman, since I know plenty of the granddaughter of the first Hokage, Slug Princess, and renowned medic," Naruto stated as he stood and offered his hand, which she took before the two went to the kitchen and spent several hours talking, laughing, and getting to know each other as a man and woman. Things were looking good for a future together. 2 weeks later, Hokage office. Naruto was once again in the Hokage office with his team, but this time it was because of a mission. He hoped it wasn't a lengthy one since he had 2 dates he had to be here for. Not only a Yame and their dinner, business date scheduled for a few days from now, but Makoto had also wanted a date and she was scheduled for a couple days before Yame, since he needed time to set some things up for their date, as he had something special for Yame planned. He had something planned for Makoto too, but the prep wasn't nearly as long as it was for Ayame. Beyond that, he had no problem since Tsunade had gotten Megumi, Hana, and Triss into the hospital, though a few patients ended up having an extended stay due to some comments that were made to the three. It ranged from some demanding since they were willing to fuck the demon, So they should be willing to fuck a normal person. To basically saying they'd rather die than be treated by a demon's whore or bitch. There were also the perverts who wouldn't respect them and kept trying to grope them. Naturally the three didn't take kindly to that, and made their displeasure known along with Tsunade and Shizune. It was even worse when it was shown some nurses were purposely going against the three foreign women's orders on treatment regardless of who was being treated. The doctors were fine since Tsunade and Shizune vetted them thoroughly and even had a trusted Yamanaka doing mind screenings at times to ensure that. They didn't think the nurses would try anything since the doctors filled out their own orders and a copy always went to Tsunade to review in case there was a better treatment or maybe there was something the doctors missed, so there wasn't much of a way to sabotage the doctors. But apparently those nurses didn't care if they were caught, since what did some foreign sluts know about medicine? That was nipped in the bud very quickly, especially since with Naruto's help Tsunade now had the shadow clone jutsu and thus could get her work done easier and have more time to relax. Shizune could use it too, but her reserves weren't high enough to do too many clones, but it still helped cut her work down. Naruto of course warned against dispelling too many clones at once since the backlash would be a bitch. Another item was Catalya had her own shop, though she wasn't opening it for another week since she wanted time to forge her own stock of weapons and armor in the shop. At the here and now, they were in the office because a new mission came. Hence the extra person in the room, who was a man in his 20s with long black hair, black eyes, and a lean build. He had a green shirt, gray pants, black sandals, a kunai holster on his right leg, a simple metal pauldron on his left shoulder, and finally a headband on his head showing he was from the hidden waterfall village. Good, now that you three are here, we can begin. This is Shibuki-sama, the leader of the hidden waterfall village. Your mission is to escort him back home and ensure he arrives safely. There's been word of a few rogues in the area, so depending on the situation the mission may have more added to it as necessary. Minato instructed, making them nod. Very well, Shibuki-sama wishes to return today, so you have an hour to prepare and head out. Minato stated, and Zabuza shrugged. We are ready to leave right now, if Shibuki-sama is. Zabuza stated, looking to the man, who nodded, signaling that was fine. Then let's go. Zabuza stated before the four left, leaving Minato to his work. Later. Land of Waterfalls. Naruto sighed as he and the others were struggling not to beat Shibuki's ass the entire way. He was rude, condescending, arrogant, and a major asshole. When he wasn't treating Haku like she was inferior because she was a woman, he was trying to treat Zabuza and Naruto as personal servants and pack mules. When he wanted them to carry him across a river instead of just walking across like he was fully capable of doing, Naruto literally kicked him in the ass and sent him flying across where he landed in a heap. Naruto just wished this was like some crack story where there would be a large convenient mound of manure for him to land in for no other reason than for him to be sent flying into. Alas, this wasn't some joke of a story, and thus he had to live with him just slamming hard into the ground while he and his teammates walked across the water. When the asshole tried to complain, Naruto threatened to knock him out and drag him the rest of the way, while Zabuza commented that they should just cut off a limb each time he complained. Shibuki shut up after that, but he still kept glaring all the time, not that they cared to begin with. Now there was a new problem. They were still over a mile from the village, but Shibuki refused to let them go any further. I don't care what your orders are, you will not come any closer to my village and risk the entrance being revealed to outsiders. Shibuki shouted, annoying them. And I don't care what you want, until you're inside your village you're not going anywhere alone. Zabuza stated with his arms crossed. No, Shibuki shouted with clenched teeth. Then I guess you're never going home. Because as soon as you start walking, we're going to follow you, and I guarantee you're not strong enough to make us back off. Naruto stated as he looked at Shibuki in boredom. Leave or I promise that your village will no longer receive help from us. Shibuki growled and Naruto looked at him uncaringly. That's no big loss, you told us of one incursion from Iwa in the last war and it wasn't even the biggest one. As having grass as an ally would do better than having you, especially since your members are smaller than grass, and the trade would be better for Konoha as well. Naruto stated, making Shibuki scowl at him, but before he could try to retort an explosion went off nearby and he widened his eyes. Oh no, the brat is there. Shibuki stated before taking off in that direction, making the three frown at each other before they quickly followed him, with Naruto already guessing what the person was given Shibuki's reaction. Arriving at the site, The three saw Shibuki fighting a rain ninja that was backed up by several ronin and thugs. The rain ninja wore a gray hat-like forehead protector with the Omegacure symbol on the front of it, tied in the back of his head. He had tiny black eyes, messy, chin-length brown hair coming out from under his forehead protector, part of it covering his left eye. He also wore a black skin-tight suit underneath all of his clothing, which also covered his mouth and nose similar to Kakashi. Around his neck was a light gray scarf, a light gray t-shirt over his black suit, a blue-colored strapped suit that acted as his pants and a shirt over his gray one. He had his weapon holster on his right thigh and black shinobi sandals. He reminded Naruto a bit of Izumo, just shorter with messier hair. Near Shibuki was a dark-skinned girl with mint-green hair with amber-colored eyes and had a hair clip at her forehead that matched said eyes. Her outfit consisted of a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. Her forehead protector was worn on her right arm and she appeared to be a bit scraped up. Naruto also could see she was quite beautiful as she had DD cup S, a plump ass, slender legs, wide hips, a slim midriff that was beginning to show a six-pack of abs, and she had a fair complexion. Naruto, she's the Jinchuriki of Chomei, the seven-tailed beetle. Kurama informed, making Naruto nod in acknowledgement. I guessed she was a Jinchuriki given the fact she was living a mile outside the village and Shibuki's reaction to her. Naruto stated, making Kurama nod, since aside from Kumo, Jinchuriki were treated pretty much the same all around. Shaking those thoughts away, he noticed that the area was a disaster zone, showing the girl put up a lot of a fight evidenced by the craters and corpses scattered about. Said girl was also currently restrained via water whips from the Izumo look-alike and what no doubt were some water clones. Shibuki was standing across from the group with a kunai in hand. Let her go, she's property of my village. Shibuki stated, making Naruto frowned as he slowly clenched his hand, causing his knuckles to pop audibly, while Haku and Zabuza narrowed their eyes since they could guess what that meant. The Izumo look-alike merely chuckled, sorry, but once my boss gets the hero water, it won't be your village anymore, and she'll be needed for breeding new soldiers after she and her future masters drink the hero water and impregnate her. He stated while Shibuki scowled at him, though Naruto could sense it wasn't exactly what they planned to do to the girl, but more WHO was going to be doing it. Naturally, the girl struggled more at hearing that since she was no one's slut or breeding factory. She got a gash to her cheek from a water whip strike for her trouble. Stop struggling, slut. I only have to keep you functional, so I can cause you a lot of pain before delivering you. The look-alike sneered as he readied to whip her again if she moved a muscle. However, he was unprepared for his whips to suddenly be cut apart by an arc of wind, making him jump back as Naruto appeared beside Fu, who tensed before speaking to her closest friend. Don't be afraid, my child, that boy will not hurt you. Chomei informed the girl, who relaxed a bit but still kept her stance ready. How do you know? She asked, knowing that there had to be a reason. Because he's like you, Fu. He has my brother Kurama sealed inside him and their chakra is in perfect sync, meaning they are as close as we are. Kurama wouldn't let any harm come to us unless we deserved it, and his container is no doubt of a similar mindset. We can trust them, they will help us. Chomei stated, making the now named Fu relax more. He's strong too, I suck as a sensor and I can feel his chakra and power. Fu stated as Naruto was standing between her and the enemies that attacked, though he was also between her and Shibuki as well. Yes, he's a true alpha male. He commands authority and respect and gives the latter back when it is deserved. He doesn't have people with him because he needs it, but rather because it helps them get better. He's someone worthy of being your mate, though from what I can sense from him he's already found a few of his own, so you may need to prove yourself if you want to get his attention. Chomei stated, making Fu blush and try hard not to fidget since Chomei had essentially raised her since no one in the village was going to, so she had explained quite a bit, including her own take on the birds and bees, which was you only let someone truly capable and powerful enough take you, let alone tame you. So if the host of Kurama was impressive to Chomei, well, Fu was really interested in him now. What the hell is a Konoha shinobi doing here? The look-alike demanded as Naruto stood there with Orcrist in hand. Escorting the idiot you were just bragging to. Had you been about 10 minutes faster or 30 minutes slower you would have been done without me or my team being in the way. Naruto stated, making the enemy tense at the mention of team. But before they could try anything, a storm of senbon needles came and started striking down several of the grunts, while others were suddenly hit by a water dragon, killing them on impact. The lookalike was able to dodge along with a couple others, but those others were soon cut down by Zabuza's sword, making the lookalike curse and jump away into the trees in a retreat. Or at least he tried to retreat. He was cut off by another Naruto appearing right in front of him and running his blade right through the chest of the lookalike. Naruto merely sealed his blade away before looking at Fu, who was blushing and smiling at him before waving shyly, "Hi," she said quietly, making Naruto smile softly. However, before he could say anything, Shibuki decided to speak. "Get away from my weapon." Shibuki shouted only for Zabuza's sword to be at his neck, while Haku had several ice senbon floating around his body ready to skewer him. Particularly 2 floating right at his eyes and a dozen or so for his groin. "I think I've tolerated your disrespectful tone to my lord long enough," Zabuza stated as he made Shibuki arch his neck back. "As tempting as that is, we need to collect payment from him for the additional trouble he's caused first, then he's up for grabs," Naruto stated, making Zabuza hum a bit. "You sure? Somehow I doubt he's going to pay us," Zabuza stated, knowing it was a distinct possibility. "Then we take it from their treasury along with interest for being an annoying little shit," Naruto stated, making Zabuza smirk. "There is the issue of actually getting into the village though," Haku stated as she had the 2 near his eyes hovering less than an inch from him. "Oh, I think our new friend could help with that," Naruto stated before turning to look at Fu, who looked conflicted. "Don't you fucking dare, you dumb demon bitch. I swear I'll punish you twice as hard if you even think about it," Shibuki shouted before 3 senbon stabbed in his groin, making him shout in pain before Zabuza kicked his left knee, shattering it and dropping the asshole to both his knees, sending more pain up through him. "I see loyalty for Jinchuriki is the same here as in everywhere else but Kumo," Naruto stated before turning to Fu. "Well, miss, stand with him or you can stand with us. We won't treat you like a demon, trash, a whore, or any of the other numerous titles and names the village has given you since you became a container. We will actually treat you with respect, so long as you are worth respecting and can give you a home and family," Naruto stated as Fu bit her lip. "Do it, my child. Not only is it freedom from this village, it's also a chance to be under the care and guidance of this man as well as his people's protection." The one with the sword called him a lord, which means he's either the heir or head of a clan and thus can provide plenty of protection for you as well as training, outfitting, and comfort, provided you pull your weight of course, Chomei advised, and Fu mentally nodded before turning back to Naruto. "I can help, but I want protection with your clan in exchange," Fu stated, and Naruto smiled. "Done," he stated before giving a light bow. "Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox." Naruto introduced shocking Shibuki while Fu gave a curtsy. "Fu, Jinchuriki of the 7-tailed beetle." Fu introduced back, making Naruto nod before extending his hand, which she took, and shook it before kissing the back. "A pleasure," Naruto stated as Fu blushed a bit since that kiss sent tingles through her body. "Shall we?" Naruto asked as Fu smiled and nodded, which caused Naruto to nod to Zabuza, who punched Shibuki in the face, sending him into unconsciousness before lifting the asshole up as Haku took the senbon from the air and turned them back to water before storing it in a seal on her arm. Naruto then set the bodies on fire and left a clone behind to ensure they didn't burn the forest down. Following Fu, Naruto wasn't surprised as they walked behind a large waterfall at a cliff face before she walked through the wall behind it, showing it was a genjutsu over a tunnel that led to a pool of water. Fu then explained that the pool covered a tunnel that led into the village, and unless someone knew where to go, you could scale the cliff face for hours and not find an opening to use. Making sure they were ready, the 4 dove into the pool with Zabuza carrying Shibuki as they went through the tunnel and came out into a large lake area around a giant tree, while the shore and edges of the area was the village. Fu explained how the tree was said to have been grown a long time ago and was imbued with a mass amount of chakra, and drinking its sap, which was only taken once every 100 years or so and called hero water, could boost a person's chakra, power, strength, speed, and agility to untold heights. But the cost was it could shorten your lifespan unless you drank it just after it was harvested. The village considered the sap sacred, so no one ever did drink it unless it was an emergency. Apparently, only the village leader, meaning Shibuki, knew where the sap was kept after it was extracted and no one else was allowed to know about it. Meaning, they were most likely about to be ambushed because whoever was in charge of the last group needed Shibuki back in the village in order to get the sap. Sure enough, more grunts and thugs came out surrounding them along with 3 others that were clearly in charge. Well, isn't this a surprise? I didn't expect Konoha Shinobi to be here, let alone with the demon whore my men were sent to retrieve. Did you kill Kirasame? The apparent leader, a man, stated having long spiky gray hair, goatee, and wore a dark blue jacket, gray pants, sandals, and had a bandana keeping his hair out of his face. The masked wimp? Yeah, he's dead and burning. Naruto stated casually, not at all caring about being surrounded. I told you he wasn't worth keeping around. Couldn't even handle a couple of genin and a jonin with the number of men you gave him. The second figure, another man, stated, drawing attention. He was a bit muscular by ninja standards and wore a black, sleeveless shirt, gray pants, ninja sandals, and brown-colored arm warmers. He had chin-length gray hair which was spiked at the top. He also had a teal line marking that went over his nose and went cheekbone to cheekbone. Or maybe we actually have some competition here. One of them is Zabuza Momochi after all. The only female member stated as she looked over the group. She was younger than the other 2, decently tall at 5 feet 10 inches, and had a slim yet wide figure with fair skin, short light brown unkempt spiky hair, azure blue earrings, red lipstick, pupil-less black eye irises, F-cup S, a bubble butt, long legs, wide hips, and wore a white hairband over her head, holding the hair out of the way from her eyes. She wore a pink tube top that had a dark red lining along with an open light blue shirt, navy blue pants, and ninja sandals. She wore her shirt open to let her bust show as it was straining against her tube top, and she also had a shuriken holster on her right thigh. Yeah right, Hisame. Even if it is Zabuza, he's overrated since he's been on the run for years after failing an assassination. The muscular one stated while the now named Hisame scoffed. I'm sure that's what Kirasame thought too before they killed him. But, by all means, underestimate them, Murasama, I'll still be standing when it's over. Hisame stated, making the now named Murasama scowl at her. You're lucky you're useful or I'd have you as nothing more than a. Murasama growled, making Hisame glare at him. Try it, please, I'll be happy to sever what makes you man and then make you choke on it, though that may be hard since I'm sure it's small enough I could fit it in a straw. Hisame threatened back as Murasama scowled at her. Enough, the leader stated, making them glare at each other another moment before turning back to their current problem. Naruto merely looked at the apparently leader. Have you considered what would happen if they decided to take the hero water for themselves and just cut you out of the deal? Naruto asked, knowing Haku was prepping her own ambush of the surrounding enemy while they were distracted. The leader merely laughed. These two? They can't beat me as it is. Even with the hero water they wouldn't stand a chance. He stated, making the 2 glare at him for the insult even if they knew it was true. I see, we're in the same position then since my teammates wouldn't be able to beat me either. Naruto stated as the leader snorted at the idea of a genin beating Zabuza Momochi. The difference is, I don't belittle them for being weaker and I actively try to make them stronger. Naruto stated, making the leader scoff. Then you're even weaker than I thought. The strong don't care about those who are weaker than them. He stated, and Naruto snorted and shook his head. A real leader knows how to draw out the strength of his followers, and that's why you're not a leader. You're just an asshole who managed to get some people to work for him. Naruto stated as the leader frowned. It doesn't help that you're so arrogant that you failed to notice your death approaching. Naruto stated before Haku stomped her foot and senbon and knives made of water and ice began skewering several of the enemies with the 3 main enemies dodge, though Murasama didn't get completely unscathed as he got a few cuts. He had to jump away again to dodge as Zabuza brought his blade down where he was standing a moment ago before backing off to get his bearing. Only Zabuza wouldn't let him, having discarded Shibuki like a sack of potatoes. The same could be said for Hisame as Haku was attacking her with more and more sharp pointy objects made of ice and water. Naruto though just stood there and looked at the leader as he kicked Shibuki away from the field. Fu, handle the rest of the lackeys, I'll take care of him. Naruto instructed, making Fu nod before she went after the hired help as Naruto kept standing there. Little shit, you think you can take me on just because you're from one of the big 5? The leader scowled as Naruto merely stood there looking at him. "No, I think I can take you on because you're a pathetic excuse for a shinobi with no real skill or power to back up his arrogance," Naruto stated as the leader growled before launching at him and entered into a taijutsu combo, only for Naruto to block each strike easily before delivering a hard punch to his opponent's gut, causing him to gasp in pain as blood and spit flew from his mouth. Naruto merely watched as he hacked and tried to get his breathing under control before he did a spin kick to his face, sending him flying away while also knocking out a couple teeth. Naruto merely looked at him as he crashed into the ground and then the water and began walking towards him, knowing the other three would be fine. With Zabuza, he was actually disappointed as Murasama wasn't nearly as impressive as he made himself out to be. He had a couple of water jutsu and taijutsu, but nothing else to really make him worth all the arrogance he had. The only slightly impressive thing was the rapid-paced taijutsu style he used. But Naruto was much faster, and as such Zabuza could keep up with Murasama easily enough. Then again, training with Naruto and his two other guards was the reason this was a joke. If he was still the same man he was back at Wave, then he may actually be trying, but right now? With the advancement in skill, prowess, and power he had from the bone-shattering training? This was just a joke. Zabuza proved this as he caught one of the punches thrown at him and began squeezing. He squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, even as he heard the joints pop, the tendons snap, the bones crack. He kept squeezing the offending limb. Murasama screamed in pain and tried to throw another punch, only to get the same result, and Zabuza made it worse by kicking him in the knees, shattering them both. Once he felt the hands were destroyed enough, Zabuza let go, leaving Murasama on the ground unable to do anything. Zabuza merely looked at him in boredom before digging in a pocket and pulled out a slip of paper and a scroll before he slapped the paper on Murasama, watching his fuinjutsu lines spread across his body before constricting him, making it impossible for him to move. Zabuza then opened the scroll, showing more fuinjutsu markings before they glowed, and a puff of smoke came before clearing and showed Murasama was gone. Zabuza merely rolled the prisoner scroll up and put it back in a pocket for transport. While not a notable threat, Murasama could provide intel on AIM and thus had some value to him that could benefit Konoha and by extension Naruto. Especially since AIM had been quiet as of late, no one was getting in and no information was getting out from those few who did get in, because said people that did were soon found dead. So, any information was better than no information, and thus Murasama was spared death at the moment as he had some usefulness to him still. Over with Haku, she was standing calmly across from Hisame as she had dozens if not hundreds of pointy, sharp objects all round the area pointed right at her. Hisame, for her part, was panting and trying to think things through since she had dozens of cuts and scrapes from constantly dodging the different impaling implements. It didn't help her left arm was numb from an unsuccessful dodge of a senbon, and her clothes were torn in various places, showing more of her body off. In other words, she was fucked if she didn't think of something quick. "You should surrender, Naruto-sama won't harm you if you do," Haku stated while her face was hidden due to her mask. Hisame grunted a bit as she looked over the situation carefully. To be tortured for information and then executed? Not much of an offer. Hisame answered since she'd live until she was taken back to Konoha, but then all bets were off. Haku merely tilted her head as the sharp objects all got closer. "You could die here instead, if you prefer," Haku stated coldly as the objects all glittered in the light. "There's also the fact you could defect to Konoha, and if you prove yourself enough, Naruto-sama may even let you become a ward of his clan," Haku added while Hisame frowned. "What clan?" Hisame asked, since that would factor into things. "The Uzumaki clan," Haku stated, making Hisame widen her eyes. "He's related to the Red Death?" Hisame asked, and Haku nodded. "Yes, but he's the one in charge of the clan as its clan head," Haku stated as Hisame raised her eyebrows before frowning. "How is that possible?" Hisame asked, and Haku merely tilted her head. "I'm sorry, but did you think I would give everything away to someone who is still an enemy?" Haku asked since she knew Naruto, being the head of the Uzumaki clan, wasn't going to stay quiet for long, so there was no harm in stating it, but telling how and why he was the head and not Kushina wasn't something she was going to just tell to anyone, especially since it was Naruto's personal business. Hisame snorted. "No, I guess not. How do you know so much of him anyway?" Hisame asked, and Haku blushed as she wanted to say she was a future concubine or wife for him, but held it back. "I am a branch member of his clan, as is Zabuza." Haku stated, making Hisame frown. Zabuza? Serving that kid? And here I thought the kid was just being arrogant by being the one doing the talking. Hisame stated before several of the sharp objects flew in and hovered right at her throat, eyes, and groin. Never insult Naruto-sama in front of me. Haku warned in an icy tone that promised pain and suffering to anyone who didn't heed the warning. Hisame sweated at the situation and the killing intent the girl was aiming at her. Sorry, I meant no offense, it's just how people usually are when they speak instead of the superior officers. Hisame stated while hoping if the girl did attack, the ones at her neck would be launched first since she didn't want to be any kind of coherent when her and womanhood began to get stabbed. Haku backed the objects up an inch. It wasn't much but enough for Hisame to breathe a little easier. You've still to give your answer. Haku stated, making Hisame nod slightly. I surrender. Hisame stated as she unstrapped her shuriken pouch, tossed it away, and put her hands up. Haku nodded before reaching into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. Haku then walked up and placed it against Hisame's chest, making her shiver slightly since Haku's hand was cold and it traveled to her s. Hisame then gasped as she felt her chakra become restrained before Haku stepped back while using her ice to pick Hisame's pouch up and put it in her hand. That seal will stay on until Naruto-sama says otherwise. Haku stated, making Hisame sigh. I could always stab you with senbon to paralyze you and then seal you in a prisoner scroll if you wish. Haku stated, making the senbon inch closer to Hisame's neck. Hisame widened her eyes and shook her head rapidly. No. No, the seal is perfectly fine. Hisame answered quickly, making Haku nod before the different sharp and pointy objects dissolved into water. Good. Haku stated as Zabuza walked over along with Fu, who had dealt with the thugs easily enough with her taijutsu and some of her Biju-style jutsu. They then turned to where Naruto was to see him staring calmly at a large tidal wave that was heading right for him. Hisame and Fu began to panic along with several of the villagers that were within eyesight of it, but Zabuza and Haku merely stood calmly. We need to get out of here. Hisame stated frantically, but Haku held her still. Naruto-sama will handle it. Haku stated calmly as she watched Naruto call Orcrist to him again before he took a Iijutsu stance. He held it a moment before he drew and swung his blade in an instant, cutting the wave in half, shocking everyone but Zabuza and Haku as the wave collapsed on itself. The leader merely stared in shock as Naruto walked across the water before his shock turned to anger and he quickly unleashed a water dragon at Naruto, only for him to cut through it as well. He then tried launching dozens of other jutsu, including Great Cannonball, and it all ended the same before Naruto was gone from his sight. He looked around furiously before gasping in pain as a blade pierced through his body at his stomach. As I said, you're too pathetic of an excuse for a shinobi to be a threat. Enjoy hell, Naruto stated before he pulled his blade up and out, cutting the man in two before he started walking back to the shore as the body sank beneath the waters. Joining his group, he looked to Hisame. Glad you didn't fight for that piece of shit now? Naruto asked with a smirk as Hisame nodded numbly. Naruto then turned and saw Shibuki getting up. Oh good, you're up. We just handled the invading force, so now you need to pay more. Naruto stated as he walked over to Shibuki as the villagers began coming out. I'm not paying you anything. I told you not to enter my village and then you attack me and dare to take my village's weapon into the village. Shibuki shouted as a few glared at Fu while some were nervous. Shibuki was going to offend the people who just destroyed the attackers like they were nothing. Then I'll beat you until you tell where your treasury is and take what we're owed now. And because you clearly don't know how to treat a woman, let alone a Jinchuriki, I'll take Fu back with us where she can have an actual life. Naruto stated, making Shibuki look at him in outrage before he was hit in the face by a headband as Fu removed hers and threw it at him. Take that as my resignation, Fu stated, making Shibuki growl. Arrest them, now, Shibuki shouted and waited for his subordinates to obey. Only they wouldn't. You guys want a piece of this? Naruto asked, looking at the gathered crowd, and immediately they put their hands up and stepped back. Nope. Nah, no, I'm good. They chorused, shocking Shibuki. What the fuck are you doing? I order you to arrest them. Shibuki shouted angrily and they shook their heads. Not only did they save the village and protect the hero water, but he killed Suin by himself. You want to fight, then go ahead, we want to live. A Jonin named Kegan stated, making it clear Shibuki was on his own. There ya have it. If one of you would be so kind as to pay us an additional C rank fee, we'll leave and be out of your hair." Naruto stated, making the shinobi look at each other before Kegon nodded to one of the others, who took off back into the village. "Traitors! You're all traitors. I'll have you executed for this," Shibuki shouted, making Naruto scoff. "You and what army? Newsflash, a leader isn't a leader if they have no one following them. You really think these people will turn on each other just because you say they should die? Not only is that stupid, it's even worse since your village can't exactly spare the muscle you want to sacrifice to get your way," Naruto stated, making Shibuki growl at him. "I am the leader of this village. That means my word is law," Shibuki shouted while Naruto shook his head. "Only if they decide you should stay in charge, and only if you can enforce your law, but by yourself you can't enforce anything at all," Naruto stated before kicking him in the head, sending him back into unconsciousness. "I'd recommend you get rid of him as your leader. He's going to get you all killed at this rate," Naruto stated as he folded his arms behind him before the man Kegon sent running off came back with a sack and tossed it to Naruto, who caught it. "With that, we shall take our leave," Naruto stated as he and his group began to leave, making the villagers breathe a sigh of relief since they were afraid they would want more. "All right, everyone, let's get to work securing the village and then fixing the damage we sustained," Kegon announced, making everyone nod as they got to work, while Kegon and another took Shibuki away since he was only made the leader because his father and Suin vouched for him before the former passed away. Outside, Naruto and his now bigger group began moving away from the village before Naruto stopped and faced Hisame. "Hold still," Naruto stated before he pulled his seal off before going to her neck and pulling another off. "Naruto-sama, I only put one on her," Haku stated, making Naruto nod while Zabuza held his hands up saying he didn't put one on her. "I know, Haku, this lacks my finesse and style. My guess is one of her so-called partners put this here. By the basic design, it apparatus to be a kill switch meant to eliminate whoever the seal is put on via trigger action from the user. Luckily my seal overrode it and let me know it was there, or it could have reactivated," Naruto stated as he looked at the seal he pulled off, finding it to only barely be passable as a seal. "Bastards," Hisame hissed since she never should have agreed to help them with their bullshit plan. "Indeed, but now you don't have to worry about that," Naruto stated with a casual smile while balling up the seal and throwing it away as Hisame blushed a bit. "And you're going to be different than them?" Hisame asked, looking at the three as Naruto smirked. "I don't rule by fear, I rule through respect and loyalty. You stay loyal to me, then I stay loyal to you. You work hard for me, I'll work hard for you. Give and take," Naruto stated, making Hisame nod slightly. "Besides, you've seen us in action. Does it look like there's any resentment, anger, or plans for backstabbing among us?" Naruto asked, and Hisame looked them over intently. No, I don't see even a hint of any of that," Hisame stated, and Naruto nodded. "Exactly, we look after our own and keep them safe and strong. Anyone interfering with that is our enemy, and we put our enemies to the sword," Naruto stated before turning and heading off again. "Is it wise to have her using all her chakra?" Zabuza asked as Naruto stopped and nodded. "Yes, she's not stupid enough to attack any of us knowing it would mean her death. Plus, she wants to see more of us and see if we are the kind of people she's wanted to work with for a long time," Naruto stated as his teachers made him very observant and his sensory skills helped that even further. "You don't even know me," Hisame stated, and Naruto looked back at her and she suddenly felt nervous and shy as she felt like she was naked to his eyes as they bored right through her into her soul. 97% of the time, you're the smartest person in the room, but you don't always show it because you've only been ridiculed and hated by the people you were working with. You feel teammates should protect each other but not risk dying to save one person when the team as a whole matters more than the individual. You've stopped trusting people because the few times you did, they used you both physically and psychologically, and no doubt that's left plenty of scars. You don't like involving innocent people, but you do know that sometimes you have no other choice. You keep different jutsu and weapons you know how to use a secret because you know that gives you an edge if you are betrayed. Please stop me when I'm wrong," Naruto stated, making Hisame turn her head, feeling more exposed than she ever had in her life, and that was counting being stripped and taught how to perform seduction back in AIM. "Okay, so maybe you do know me," Hisame stated quietly. "Yes, that's why I know you're not going to try anything on the way to the village or within the village," Naruto stated before he motioned them to start moving again. Hisame was quiet along the way as she could only think about the man leading their group, and Fu was the same way. They'd have to try talking with Haku to get more information on him since they didn't really feel like talking to Zabuza. Later, Uchiha District. Naruto was walking through the district dressed in a dress shirt, slacks, and shoes, all black with red trimmings, heading for the clan head house to pick up his date for the evening. The different Uchiha members nodded to him as he passed, knowing who he was and that he was, even unofficially, courting the matriarch and 2 princesses of the clan. While a few were annoyed by this since they wanted to get the women for themselves, they knew not to fuck with Naruto after what the Hokage did plus Tsunade and Makoto's own handling of people who did anything against him. There was also Naruto's own handling of problems to take into account as well. There was a drawback of them supporting Naruto earning more ire from the villagers, but they had long since stopped caring even when Makoto essentially cut Kushina off a couple years ago. Alienating the Hokage's wife wasn't an easy move, but they managed and kept working and going as they pleased. They just hoped it would be worth it in the end. As for Naruto, he was thinking back on recent events. After returning from the mission, Zabuza had turned over Murasama to the T.I. department before Hisame was then taken and questioned, with Naruto offering her sanctuary and sponsorship to be a Konoha no Ichi. Hisame cooperated, knowing this was how the system worked, and so long as she was cooperative then they had no reason to resort to crueler tactics. With Naruto sponsoring her, the interrogation would be civil and Hisame had no problem selling out AIM for all it was worth. Of course, this also brought up the point of Fu, and, after explaining things to Minato, it was signed off on Fu being Naruto's 3rd teammate and a kunoichi of Konoha. The former was the best option since they already had a rapport going, and Naruto being able to relate to her as a Jinchuriki only made it an easier choice. Besides, there wasn't anyone else available and Minato wanted to see what Naruto was truly capable of. Since then, Naruto had been training Fu hard in both taijutsu and ninjutsu to get her skills up to what they could be. For a weapon, he didn't give her a sword, finding that such a thing didn't match her way of fighting, so he commissioned a spear for her to use and then improved it with seals to ensure it was better than a master-crafted weapon. So far she was getting proficient with it, but still had a ways to go before she was a master of using it, though that was to be expected. There was also the bit of awkwardness of him and Rukia explaining his harem and relationships, but Fu took it well as Chome had explained how true alphas had more than one mate to sat their desires and need to breed offspring. So Naruto really just solidified himself as the ideal man for Fu to give herself to completely, hence why she gladly joined his clan and vowed to protect, honor, and serve him in all things and ways. And she did so while stripping naked to present herself, letting him see her DDD cup boobs, jiggly ass, wide hips, toned stomach and legs, and a clean-shaven womanhood. Rukia, naturally, approved of such a move since it got rid of the "does she like me in that way?" dance that she couldn't stand. It was refreshing for someone to just openly submit and acknowledge they would gladly fuck her future husband at the asking. Arriving at the house, Naruto broke from his thoughts, knocked a few times, and waited before the door opened, showing Itomi in a tank top and booty shorts, and she smiled at Naruto. "Hi, Ka-san is finishing up, then she'll be out." Itomi answered as she led him inside to wait, not at all caring that her tits were nearly on display due to her shirt being too small to fully contain them. However, once the door was closed, Itomi pinned him to the door and kissed him heatedly on the lips, and Naruto was happy to reciprocate while letting his hands roam her body, especially her ass, as their tongues fought and wrapped around each other. Naruto went further and slipped his hands into her shorts, groping her ass as she was wearing a thong, and Itomi responded in kind by groping his crotch. After a few minutes, Itomi broke for air with a blush and a lustful smirk. "You're taking me on a date next, and I'd better be impressed," Itomi stated, and Naruto smirked before pinching her ass, making her jump a bit. Or you're not going to be impressed," Itomi stated, pressing against him even more. I find that unlikely, I'm always impressed with you," Naruto stated, making Itomi blush a bit and smile. "Fine, just something more to look forward to on our date," Itomi stated as she stepped back after Naruto slapped her ass. "Indeed," Naruto stated with a smirk on his face before turning as the clacking of heels came from the hall before Makoto stepped into view. She looked radiant and downright white as she wore a tight black lace-up dress that reached mid-thigh and gave a look at her curves as her tits were near bursting out of the top of the dress, giving an excellent amount of cleavage to ogle at. Her ass was straining against the fabric as it swayed side to side every step she took, while her legs were shown off with black lace stockings and stiletto heels. Around her neck was a simple black choker, a pair of black pearl earrings in her ears, and she had light makeup on that added to her natural beauty. All in all, she looked like a true MILF that knew what she had and knew how to use it and show it off. Naruto merely smiled and bowed before kissing her hand. "May I have the name of this radiant beauty before me? Itomi and Sarada never told me they had such a beautiful sister," Naruto stated, making Makoto blush and giggle while the other two smirked. "Oh, stop it, Naruto-kun. You know exactly who I am," Makoto stated while happy to be complimented so sincerely, since it had been a long time since she was given a real compliment and not just a perverted comment about her looks. "Yes, I do know, a goddess in human form," Naruto stated, kissing her cheek as Makoto blushed again and slapped his shoulder. "Flattery will get you a lot of places, stud," Makoto stated as she eyed him up and down like a predator eyeing something it wanted badly. "Is it flattery if I truly believe it?" Naruto asked as he offered his arms, and she gladly took it as they left. "Maybe," Makoto stated before looking to her daughters. "Don't wait up, girls," Makoto stated as she waved and walked off with Naruto, while the two girls smirked and closed the door, knowing they'd get their chance soon enough. Naruto and Makoto calmly walked through the village arm in arm as Naruto led her to where their date was taking place. "Hee, I'm actually giddy with excitement. It's been so long since I got to have a date. And with such a handsome young man too," Makoto stated as she hugged his arm tighter, pressing it into her tits. "Well, I'm glad I can take such a beautiful woman on a date," Naruto stated with a smile as he continued to lead her while she smiled. "So do I get to know where we're going, or do I have to guess?" Makoto asked, and Naruto smirked. "You'll find out when we get there," Naruto stated, making Makoto pout before she smirked and pressed against him more. "Isn't there anything I could do to make you tell me?" Makoto asked, and Naruto chuckled. "Oh, I'm sure there is, but none of it could be done in an open street, plus we wouldn't have enough time to enjoy your persuasion," Naruto stated with a smirk as she blushed a bit at the predatory gleam in his eyes. "Oh, so we're on a schedule. That means it's a place with reservations," Makoto stated, and Naruto merely smirked as they kept walking, ignoring the different people staring at the Uchiha matriarch and the Jinchuriki of the village acting like a couple. A couple minutes later, they arrived at a very classy restaurant called the Golden Leaf, much to Makoto's shock as Naruto walked them in, ignoring glares from the customers waiting to be seated. "Hello, table for two for Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto told the maitre d', who looked before nodding. "Of course, right here," the woman stated before waving over a server. "Please escort these two to the VIP table," she stated, making the server nod before motioning the two to follow him as he walked away. "Why the hell are you seating him before us? And how does the demon have a reservation for the VIP table?" one annoying customer demanded as the maitre d' looked at them. "He's being seated because he's got a permanent reservation here. He has the reservation because of who he is. If you don't like it, then feel free to leave and never come back here," she stated neutrally as she went over a few things on her podium as the customers just gawked at her. Naruto and Makoto were escorted to a small two-person table at the back of the restaurant that was blocked by a few dividers. They could have privacy, but they weren't cut off entirely from the rest of the establishment. Naruto pulled Makoto's chair out for her before pushing it in, and then took his own seat as the server presented two menus and then left them alone for a few minutes to let them decide what to eat. Makoto merely looked around in awe since she had never been to this place before, partly because it was so hard to get a reservation and secondly because it was expensive as all hell. "Naruto-kun, how can you afford this, let alone get a reservation for here?" Makoto finally had to ask, since she knew he had money, since paying Tazuna to build a clan compound wasn't exactly cheap. "I have the entirety of the fortune I collected during my time away, which is quite a large sum since iron pays well, especially when you're bringing glory, honor, and customers to them in droves. I also have money coming in from multiple business ventures that I have going that I've had set up for years, some long-term and some quick payouts. On top of that, I have all of the Uzumaki clan accounts at my disposal as well. Really, I could buy all the property in the village and still have enough to live off of comfortably with little worries. As for this place, I own half of it," Naruto stated, making Makoto look at him in surprise and shock. The original owner had Mito finance the building, supplies, fees, and salaries for the first few months in exchange for a substantial holding in it as it grew. It became a huge success and Mito kept it under Uzumaki clan property. Kushina never bothered to see what the Uzumaki clan held in the village, and I'm sure Tsunade knew but never bothered to come because of the price. I, however, have no such problems and are happy to take a beautiful woman out to a restaurant and lavish her with compliments and fine dining. Naruto stated with a smile as Makoto smiled back with a blush. Now, you should look at the menu, unless of course you'd like me to order for you? Naruto asked with a smile and Makoto made a thinking face. Well, why not, if only to see if you actually know me as well as you think you do. Makoto stated with a challenging grin as Naruto smirked and took her menu before gazing over the options for each course before finding the ones he knew Makoto would like best. When the waiter returned, Naruto spoke up. The lady will have the tossed green salad to start, extra tomatoes and light on the croutons. For the soup, she'll have the rice noodles in the spicy tomato broth, followed by the steak skewers with the onions and peppers extra charred with a miso dipping sauce. For dessert, she'll have the chocolate strawberry shortcake with a side of vanilla ice cream. Naruto ordered, making the server nod as they wrote it all down while Makoto had a pleasant smile on her face through it all. Naruto then ordered his own food of an udon noodle salad with a spicy mango sauce, fresh miso soup with a side pork dumplings, beef stir-fry with extra mushrooms and sesame seeds, and finally a dessert sushi sampler for last. The server nodded and then placed 2 glasses of water, 2 glasses for hot tea, and then 2 saucers for sake before bringing the tea and sake. Makoto smiled brighter as the server left. Well, the order sounds good, but we will have to see if it's made the way I like it. Makoto stated as Naruto smirked and poured her some hot tea before pouring a splash of water into it to cool down slightly. You even remembered how I like my tea. Makoto stated as she sipped hers with a happy smile, finding it to be exactly as she wanted it. I remember everything you either showed or told me you liked. Naruto stated with a small smile as Makoto smiled back and began rubbing her foot along his leg. I think there's something else I will like as well. Makoto stated with a flirtatious look on her face before shivering as Naruto grabbed her leg and began massaging her calf, making her bite back a moan. Oh no, I can assure you that you will love that when you get it. Naruto stated confidently as he was slowly rubbing and caressing her leg. Oh, aren't you? Makoto challenged with a grin before sighing as he rubbed her calf in a comforting spot. No, I just know that I'll keep going until you do love it, even if I have to reduce you to a drooling mess that won't be able to walk right for days. Naruto stated, making Makoto blush bright red. Keep talking like that and I may decide to just skip dinner and shunshiness to my room and lock the door. Makoto stated as she slipped her other foot out of her heel and began caressing his cloth-covered erection that had been there for a while. Much as I'd love to, I'm not so callous as to make Itomi and Sarada sit through our inevitable fuck session knowing what we're doing. Especially since I'd likely get jumped by both of them wanting their turn right after. Naruto stated, making Makoto giggle a bit knowing he was right. Her girls would let her have her time, but then they would want theirs and would not take no for an answer. Fair enough, just don't make me wait too long. This is the most fun and you ally enticing time I've had, ever, and I'm going to want to hit the high note of it sooner rather than later. Makoto stated before the salads were delivered and the duo began to eat. Have some faith and patience, Miko-chan, since good girls get plenty of treats and rewards. Naruto stated with a lustful look as Makoto blushed at the nickname while feeling her body heat up at his talk. Yes sir, Makoto stated as she pulled her legs back but kept them near his. The duo ate in peace, talking about anything and everything they could and refamiliarizing themselves with each other, only this time to an intimate level. The two held nothing back from the other. Makoto told him about her marriage and subsequent loneliness and her own handling of her needs, while Naruto told her about his missions, his UAL encounters, and his girls, all at her own asking. Rukia had been plain and direct with Makoto that Naruto and everyone involved with him had a 100% honesty policy. They were absolutely honest and had no secrets at all. Naruto would tell them everything and they would tell him everything, no holds barred. Makoto understood and even respected it, since there was never anything hurtful kept hidden and thus could be dealt with immediately rather than let it stew until it got out and someone got hurt worse. So Makoto was following the rule and being completely honest, though she was thankful Naruto wasn't asking any outright embarrassing, uncomfortable questions that she'd need time to work the nerve up to answer. By the end of the meal, the two felt intimately close and Makoto could honestly say he knew her perfectly as the dishes were perfect and exactly what she would want when having a meal. Naruto paid the bill before leaving with Makoto on his arm and her head on his shoulder as they did. However, both noticed that people were still staring at as they walked and it was annoying Makoto. "Don't these people have anything better to do than stare at us?" Makoto asked testily as Naruto chuckled. To be fair, it's not often you see two clan heads on a date, let alone a Jinchuriki and Uchiha together. Naruto stated, making Makoto huff. Still, they should mind their own business. Makoto stated, glaring at a few assholes she knew had tried to torment Naruto when he was younger. She then gasped as Naruto's hand went to her hip and pulled her close to him till her tits were ballooning out against his chest. "Then how about we give them something to really stare at?" Naruto asked with a smirk, and before Makoto could voice her confusion, Naruto kissed her full on the lips, making her widen her eyes and blush, before she wrapped her arms around his neck and gladly kissed back aggressively. Naruto was walking to Ichiraku Ramen wearing nice black pants, red Henley shirt, and shoes. It wasn't as fancy as what he wore for Makoto, but he still left an impact with what he wore. Arriving at his destination, he knocked a few times and waited since he told Ayame to dress comfortably, not fancy at all. When the door opened, he smiled seeing Ayame with her hair done up in a bun, a simple pink blouse that had buttons undone to show off her tight form-fitting yoga pants that looked like they could tear right off if she tried to bend over, and some heeled sandals. Naruto looked her up and down intently, making her blush before he smiled at her. "Hello, Ayame-chan, you're looking beautiful tonight." Naruto stated, making her smile. "Hi, and thank you, Naruto-kun. Are we ready to go?" Ayame asked as she started stepping out of her home before pausing as Naruto stopped her. "No, we're not going anywhere. I'm going to cook for you tonight," Naruto stated as Ayame looked surprised at him. "Really?" Ayame asked, wondering what Naruto cooking for her would be like. "Yup, I want you comfortable and relaxed the entire time. What better place for you to relax than where you live? If at any time you start feeling uncomfortable, I can either leave or we can take a walk around the village to get fresh air. I can always leave a clones to finish cooking while we do," Naruto stated with a smile as Ayame smiled back, loving how caring and attentive he was being with her. "Okay," Ayame stated as she opened the door and stepped in before letting him in as well. Ayame then led him to the kitchen and he sat her down before going to the counter and opened a seal, making different ingredients pop out before he poured her a glass of red wine and handed it to her, making her smile as she sipped it before putting it down in front of her. "So, what is the lady hungry for this evening? I can prepare just about any dish you could want," Naruto asked as Ayame smiled and leaned forward, knowing it gave him a clear view of her cleavage to stare at. "Surprise me," Ayame stated, making Naruto nod and smile before he took a knife and began to dice up some vegetables and meat while getting a pan started on getting hot. "So how have things been? I know you running the stand has been hard since it wasn't ideally meant for one person to run on their own," Naruto stated as Ayame smiled at him, trying to ease into the conversation they were meant to have rather than jumping right in. "Things have been good. I had a little bit of a hassle for a while since people weren't thrilled with me running my stand and not paying the business guilds anything since I was independent, and thus they were cut out of the profits I had," Ayame stated, and Naruto paused in his chopping. "And they tried to sabotage you, no doubt," Naruto stated with an edge to his voice. "Don't worry, their attempts failed since I source my ingredients from the clans after you got that bit of business rolling, and I make my own spices so no one knows what I have at any time," Ayame stated, feeling a bit touched that he was protective of her. "I see. Well, if you ever need or want anything, I have my own contacts that can get you pretty much anything you could want or need for cooking," Naruto stated as he resumed his prepping before he got into the actual cooking. Ayame smiled as she watched Naruto prep like a seasoned pro as she sipped her wine and merely watched how his muscles moved and flexed depending what he did. "So about that investing offer," Ayame stated, making Naruto look at her a moment before he made two clones to handle the food while he sat across from her. "I meant what I said about doing it. I'd have been happy loaning you the money, but I know you wouldn't want that and I don't need the money back," Naruto stated as he smiled at her and she gave a small smile back. "I still don't feel right taking your money. Ayame stated before Naruto reached across and grabbed her hand in his. Ayame, you're important to me. I want you to have everything you've dreamed of and desired, and I'm happy to help you gain those things in any way possible. Naruto stated as Ayame smiled. Thank you, so how much were you thinking of investing? Ayame asked and Naruto smiled. 500,000 ryo. Naruto stated, making Ayame gasp in shock. Naruto, that's more than the whole stand is worth, counting the land it's built on. Ayame stated in shock at the amount he was going to invest. No, it's not. That stand is easily worth 10 times that because it's important to you. That amount should be enough to get you moving in the direction you want the stand to take, and I am happy to invest more if the need arises to see it become as grand as you want it to become. Naruto stated as Ayame began to tear up. This is too much. Ayame stated as the tears fell while Naruto merely smiled and squeezed her hand again. Not for you, not for anyone I care about. I'd gladly spend all the money I have if it meant you all got your dreams fulfilled and could be happy. Naruto stated before Ayame couldn't take it anymore and leapt across the table to his arms and began kissing him furiously, and he was eager to return it as he pulled her into his lap. Ayame wrapped her arms around him and hugged herself tight to his body as she poured her love, passion, and longing into the kiss, and Naruto reciprocated in full, running his hands along her back. Ayame couldn't help but feel happy and relieved. When she heard Naruto had returned to the village, she had been ecstatic until met Rukia while Naruto was in wave, and she informed Ayame that she was his fiancé. She felt heartbroken that he was already being taken, even though she knew about the other Konoha women that cared about him as much as she did. She almost gave up before Rukia explained things to her about how his harem and relationships worked, and that if she wanted to be with him, none of his current lovers were going to stand in her way so long as she wanted to be with him for the right reasons and not because she was greed or politically motivated. The latter, especially since a civilian could obtain a lot of influence if they married into a clan. Ayame was offended at the insinuation and told Rukia she had no intention of using or misusing her feelings for Naruto, and if Rukia thought otherwise she could go to hell after kissing her ass. Rukia had laughed and stated she liked her already. She then apologized for the insinuation as it was just a test to make sure Ayame wasn't one of those types. She knew Naruto's heart was one that wouldn't leave behind anyone he counted as precious, but time, pain, and being around different people had ways of changing people, and Rukia wanted to ensure she was still the same Ayame that Naruto spoke so highly of. Ayame understood since she had seen different people change. People she was friends with when younger were now people she despised for how they turned out. Many of them had even tried seducing her, stealing her business, trying to sabotage her, and all of the above. They failed, of course. Ayame was made of sterner stuff than your average civilian and made sure that point was made, sometimes painfully, clear. The only reason she was hesitant to accept Naruto's offer of a date was because she was worried Rukia told him to ask her out after approving of her, not because he actually wanted to, because his feelings were that strong. She should have known better, but she was only human and thus had insecurities like everyone else, even if she realized how stupid they were, at least when it came to Naruto. Eventually, the two broke for air, with Ayame gasping for breath since she wasn't trained like Naruto was to hold her breath for extended lengths of time and used chakra to hold it for even longer. Naruto merely smiled. I guess this means we'll be partners in more than one sense of the word. Naruto stated as Ayame giggled and nodded as she laid her head on his shoulder. I guess so, and with your help I know I'll make Ichiraku Ramen into a world-famous location. Ayame stated as she kissed his neck and collarbone. You bet, the girls will be glad to help, and I have several hundred recipes you can use to add more variety to the menu. I remember your dad talking about how he would add more items since not everyone wanted noodles and broth. Of course, I also have hundreds of types of ramen that you can add too. Naruto stated, making Ayame smile. That sounds good, but I feel like the only reason I'm succeeding is because of you. Ayame stated before Naruto pulled her back to face him. Not really, you're still going to have manage the money, cook the recipes correctly, and handle the business properly. I'm just giving you the tools. It's your job to use them properly to get the business going in the direction you want. So, no, I'm not the reason you're going to succeed, I'm just giving you the push so you can. Naruto stated, making Ayame smile before she kissed him again, and the two continued, not as aggressively as before, but still enjoyable and passionate as their tongues danced together. They sucked on each other's tongue, and they explored the other's mouth with their own tongue. When they had to break for air, Naruto would begin kissing and sucking on her neck, making her moan out as it sent pleasurable tingles and shocks through her body, while one hand was groping her ass and the other was stroking her back. When she would regain her breath, she would yank Naruto's head back by his hair and begin kissing him again. This cycle continued, with Ayame noticing the hard appendage pressing against her ass and Naruto noticed the wet spot forming on her pants. Neither commented or cared though, they were too absorbed in enjoying the other's lips to care, especially since they understood the other reacting that way. Naruto finally broke the cycle as the food was ready and the clones served it, and they'd need some food and drink now. However, when Ayame tried to leave his lap, he held her in place and merely turned her sideways and wrapped an arm around her before taking the fork and get her a bite of the braised pork ribs and roasted vegetables he made, making her blush as he fed her before she moaned at the taste. It was salty, sweet, tangy, sour, bitter, and spicy in all the right ways, with the pork being juicy and tender while the vegetables still had a little crunch for texture. Naruto smiled before he took some of his plate and ate off the same fork, making Ayame blush a bit more as he fed her before she grabbed a fork and began feeding him as well. Before long the food was gone and they were just sitting there together lightly making out while the clones did the dishes and cleaned up any mess that was left from cooking. "I guess I should get going soon," Naruto stated after they sat there together for close to 3 hours, not counting the time it took to cook and make out the first time. "Could you stay the night?" Ayame asked as she stroked his chest. I suppose so, but I don't think anything is going to happen tonight," Naruto stated as Ayame nodded, since she wasn't ready yet. She'd like nothing more than to make love to Naruto, but she wasn't prepared for that yet. "Agreed, I just want this to last as long as it can," Ayame stated as Naruto nodded before making a clone to go and tell his girls that he'd not be home tonight. The two then moved to the couch for a few hours just cuddling while he combed his fingers through her hair and occasionally initiating a make-out session before turning in for the night. Naruto stripped down to his boxers while Ayame removed her blouse, heels, and pants, leaving her in a burnt orange thong and lace bra as Naruto eyed her up and down. "You're living art, Ayame," Naruto stated, making Ayame blush with a smile as she climbed into bed with him and laid on his chest while his hand cupped her ass and held her tight. "Good night, Naru-kun," Ayame stated as she drifted off to sleep. "Good night, Yame-chan," Naruto stated as they both drifted off to sleep. 1 month later, Naruto was walking down the street with a smile as in front of him were Konohamaru Sarutobi, Udon Eyes, and Moegi Kazumatsuri, and they were running around playing ninja. Over the last month only a few things had really changed, including Ayame's business now growing as Yumi, Rangaku, and Tifa were working at the stand, budding restaurant. Although, Naruto suspected the business was growing mostly due to different perverts going to ogle at the girls' chests. One beautiful woman drew some attention, but 4 beautiful women drew an even larger crowd. Tsunami was helping too, so technically 5 beautiful women drawing a crowd, though she had stated that when the compound was finished she was going to be staying there full-time as Naruto's live-in maid. Another item was that Hisame was out and now a Konohaku no Ichi, and was subsequently welcomed into his clan and usually was working with the Demon Brothers when on missions. Her strategic mind worked well with their differing skills and as such were highly successful for ambush and assassination missions. Ayame, Tsunade, and Makoto had been growing in their relationships as well, getting closer to him and getting to know the other girls more and more. Sadly, he and Itomi hadn't had their date yet as both of them kept having missions to go on that took time and effort to accomplish, so they never had the chance. Naruto half suspected that Minato was sending him on missions with his team to try and keep him from seeing Makoto that much after Kushina saw them together, but there was no real proof other than he could easily see Kushina trying to pull something like that. The compound was well into the construction now and should be done by the time the Chunin exam finals hit, so long as they kept this pace up, which Naruto had no problem doing at all. It was especially successful since Geralt, Tosen, and Zabuza could make a few clones to help with the labor force, which doubled as helping when they wanted to train and keep in shape as well. Plus, when the girls split up and needed someone to watch their backs, their clones could handle that. Now the Chunin exams were less than 3 weeks away and Zabuza had already submitted the forms to have them signed up and ready to start the exams when they did. Haku had been coming along nicely in her swordsmanship. Fu was quickly becoming deadly in her spear combat while her ninjutsu and taijutsu were also accelerating well. And Naruto himself was training daily and rigorously, while not neglecting his girls, in his different sword styles and arts along with his jutsu, agility, hand-to-hand, and sealing arts. Which brings us to here and now as Naruto followed the trio as they rounded a corner before there was a shout and yell causing Naruto to sigh as he increased his pace and rounded the corner to come upon an interesting sight. Said sight was a teenager slightly older than Naruto wearing a catsuit and makeup holding Konohamaru up in the air by his scarf while behind him was a blonde woman with 4 pigtails and a large fan on her back. She wore a black dress that only just reached her knees with fishnet underneath, shin guards, and heels. Her dress showed off her large chest that was at least a G-cup, her wide hips, and the hint of a bouncy ass. The 2 forehead protectors showed they were from Suna, but they were 2 people that Naruto knew really well. "You got some nerve running into me, you punk." The catboy growled before he froze as a blade was pressed at his throat. "You should show more intelligence when entering a foreign village, even if it is one you're allied with. Threatening the grandson of the 3rd Hokage is a very bad idea, even for an ignoramus like you, Kankuro." Naruto stated, making the now-named Kankuro freeze up slightly as Naruto grabbed Konohamaru by the back of his shirt before pulling him away and setting him down. Who the hell are you?" Kankuro asked as he tried not to make any sudden movements. "Oh, don't recognize me? I'm hurt," Naruto stated before he pushed Kankuro back a bit. "Gaara, come down here," Naruto stated as he sealed his blade away before a red-haired boy a year or so his junior appeared in a swirl of sand with a small smile on his face. "Hello, Ni-san," Gaara stated with a smile, making the other 2 look in confusion. "Hi Gaara, things have been going well with Shukaku and your sand manipulation?" Naruto asked as Gaara nodded with a smile. "Yes, I've started practicing with another type of sand as well," Gaara stated, making Naruto smiled proudly as he patted his head. "Good job, little brother," Naruto stated with a grin before turning to the girl. "Hey Sandy-chan." Naruto waved, making the girl widen her eyes since only one person called her that. Naruto-kun?" Temari asked hesitantly and Naruto smiled wider as Kankuro gawked. "Been a while since I've seen my favorite fangirl. You've gotten even more beautiful than I remember, Temari," Naruto stated, making the now-named Temari squeal as she quickly glomped him in a hug, pressing her tits against him. "Naruto-kun," Temari shouted as she hugged him and he spun her around a bit, making her giggle as Gaara just smiled at the scene. "When did you get back?" Temari asked excitedly as she looked up at him. "A couple months ago, been doing missions and building my own clan compound here, plus helping my teammates train," Naruto stated, making Temari nod before she kissed him on the lips real quick and Naruto quickly returned it. "Breaking away from it, totally worth the wait," Temari stated with a blush and smile as Naruto chuckled. Naruto had met the Subaku children a couple years before he left the village and had hit it off with Temari and Gaara. Though Kankuro was a bit fun, he was a major dumbass as well. Anyway, Gaara had been targeted by some Suna nin that were escorting their father the Kage to the village and were to make it look like Konoha had done the deed, only for Naruto to interfere and cause them problems before Gaara had killed them. Naruto didn't shun Gaara and instead made sure he was all right, which surprised Gaara and his siblings since no one ever stuck with Gaara when he killed someone but Naruto did. Of course, him revealing he was Jinchuriki as well kind of explained it for them, and Naruto hung out with them for the remainder of their time in Konoha, which also led to Gaara seeing him as a big brother and Temari and he gaining a crush on the other. Temari and Gaara were 2 people he kept in touch with just like he did for his precious people in Konoha. "Where are y'all staying? I'd love to show you guys around again and introduce you to the others," Naruto asked and Temari's eyes lit up. "Yay," Temari squealed happily as Kankuro's sweat dropped. "She really is a fangirl," Kankuro muttered before a dark shadow came over him and he saw a very sweet smiling Temari there with her fan and Gaara glaring at him with several knives made of sand hovering around ready to skewer him. "What was that, catboy?" Temari asked as she smacked her fan into her hand a few times. Wait till Naruto sees how really good you are with your fan, girl," Kankuro stated while chuckling nervously. "Oh, that's good, thank you for being such a nice brother, Kankuro." Temari stated. The sand disappeared and Temari looked normal again. "The Nara clan is right, women are troublesome and scary," Kankuro thought with a massive sweat drop. "And since you're such a nice brother, you can go back and tell Baki-sensei where me and Gaara are going while you're at the hotel." Temari stated as she latched onto Naruto's arm and started walking away with him while Gaara followed and Naruto waved bye to Konohamaru and his friends, who wisely decided to leave the area before they could annoy Kankuro again. Kankuro just sweat dropped and sighed before trudging back to the hotel to tell his sensei where his siblings had gone. He just knew this trip was going to cause a lot of headaches for him, especially since he knew at least one item Temari wanted to discuss with Naruto. Oh well, at least there was nice weather and plenty of eye candy around for him to enjoy. That's all for my now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.